Roll call. I will ask everyone to state that you are here. Oh, this is not my correct script. Okay. I will ask everyone to state if you are here. So Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Also here.
Commissioner Raspy.
Here.
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
And Vice Chair Birch.
Here.
And I am here as well. If you can stand, please do so for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just need one moment to pull up my script. As the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to democracy and to the important work of the Planning Commission. Public input is very much welcomed and is always considered. The public can participate in several ways. Prior to a meeting, written comments about agenda items may be submitted to staff. During the meeting, there are two opportunities for members of the public to participate. First, during verbal communications period, an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda tonight. Second, during the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, any member of the public may speak about an agenda item. You will be advised of the times when to speak on each item. If you wish to address the commission tonight during the verbal communications portion or a public hearings agenda item, please raise your hand on Zoom, or for those of you here in person, complete a speaker card and give it to a staff member. Please print your name with phonetic spelling, or if you are speaking anonymously, just write down your initials. When you are called to speak, please come up to the podium and speak directly into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded. State your name and address for the record, or indicate you are speaking anonymously. You will have 3 minutes to speak. We will now begin with the verbal communications portion of the meeting, during which members of the public are invited to address the commission on any issues not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Staff will announce when your 3-minute time limit is up. So I have one person, Mr. Shepherdson, to come speak. Yeah, I believe that, are you speaking on an item tonight? Or the, a separate, okay, so this is, okay, thank you. You will have 3 minutes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First point I wanted to make was with respect to the parklets in town. I'm just a bit concerned that we have, particularly North Santa Cruz Avenue, we have so many cars that go through there at oftentimes well over 15 miles an hour, and we've got these green plastic barriers to protect them. And my suggestion would be 1 or 2 steel barriers in front of those parklets, because it just takes one wayward driver to crash into those parklets. Second point, I would like to see perhaps explored more roundabouts in town in terms of traffic where you don't have to stop. Roundabout Santa Cruz has them, Tahoe has them. Third thing, bike lanes. I would like to perhaps explore some areas where we have these small concrete barriers so that it's something else besides a plastic barrier to protect the bicyclists. Thirdly, fourth, I'd like to see the Los Gatos High School track open more in the evenings or maybe early morning for the community, and also state law encourages these public agencies, these schools, to allow their facilities for the community. So I would like to perhaps see more of that. I want to thank you all for serving. And lastly, it's a point, I think my suggestion would be for the town council members that we actually consider paying them significantly, maybe $75,000 at least or more, so that because it's a tremendous job, it's probably a full-time job, and it's a big budget, it involves significant decisions, and we would open up the pool of talent that could serve on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, Mr. Shepherdson, do any commissioners have questions for the speaker? Yes, Commissioner
Have you considered
Burnett.
making those comments directly to the council?
You're suggesting I make them directly to the council?
Yes.
I'm happy to do it. I just thought since I'm here tonight, I would make them to you as well.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? No. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone on Zoom that wants to speak?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the public hearings, starting with item number 1. Consider an appeal of a community development director decision determining that the residents remain a contributor to the historic district for property located in the Almond Grove Historic District, zoned O.LHP, APN 510-14-053, located at 228 Bachman Avenue. Request for review application PHST-224-017, exempt pursuant to CEQA section 15061B3. Property owner, applicant, and appellant, James Wood, and project planner, Sean Mullen. Before the staff report, may I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the property? And great. Are there any disclosures that need to be made? Nope. Okay. Mr. Mullen, will you be presenting the staff report for us tonight?
Yes, and thank you, Chair, and good evening. The subject property is located in the Almond Grove Historic District on the north side of Bachman Avenue, is currently developed with a single-family residence. The county assessor indicates that the residence was constructed in 1922 with an effective date of 1932, which usually reflects significant alterations or additions have occurred prior. The 1990 Ann Bloomfield survey estimates the construction date as the 1920s and rates the residence as historic with some alterations, but still a contributor to the district if there is one. The residence is listed as a contributor in the to the Almond Grove Historic District in the residential design guidelines. The Sanborn fire insurance map show that the property was undeveloped in 1908. By 1928, a dwelling with an attached accessory building was present along the rear property line, and by 1944, that dwelling had been demolished and a new dwelling was constructed toward the front of the property. It's likely that this change occurred, is the reason the county assessor provides an effective year built of 1932. The footprint of the dwelling remained consistent between the 1944 and 1956 Sanborn maps. On September 25th, 2024, the HPC considered this request and forwarded a recommendation to the Community Development Director that the residents remain a contributor to the Almond Grove Historic District, noting that the front facade displays historic integrity. The HPC also encouraged the property owner to seek their feedback on potential improvements to the residents through a preliminary review. The determination of the HPC was confirmed by the director on September 26, 2024. The property owner appealed this decision on October 7th, 2024, and in their appeal, the appellant raises 3 points. The home has been abandoned for over a decade, is an eyesore to the neighborhood, and is in severe disrepair. If not rebuilt, this lot will be returned to its previous owner by contract and likely remain abandoned and decaying. And lastly, that the town should support the surrounding neighbors who support its demolition. The HBC recommended denial just because it's old. It has no significance. A full evaluation of each of these points is provided in your staff report. The appellant also submitted a historic analysis of the residence, which provides a description of the existing residence, evolution of development on the property, and its past residents. The report evaluates the residence using the regulatory framework of the town, which closely aligns with the California Register of Historical Resources. The report concludes that the residence lacks significance under all criteria and is ineligible for inclusion in the California Register or as a Town of Los Gatos historic resource. The report opines that the resident lacks architectural distinction and has no relationship to significant events or people, and therefore it is not a contributing structure to the Almond Grove Historic District. The analysis, the historic analysis report was prepared in response to the director's decision in preparation for the appeal to the Planning Commission. This report was not available to the HPC during the September 25th, 2024 hearing, and excuse me. And as a reminder, appeals are considered de novo. The Planning Commission may render a decision anew without reference to the conclusions made through the previous decision. Being a de novo hearing, the Planning Commission can include new information in their consideration of the appeal. For the reasons stated in the staff report, staff recommends that the Planning Commission deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the director. Staff notes that an addendum and desk item with public comments have been distributed with, prior to this evening's meeting. This concludes my presentation, and staff's available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions by commissioners for staff at this time? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. I think I actually have three. Starting with the last point you made about the recommendation of denial of the appeal, that's despite the report from Mr. Bamberg from MBA.
Thank you for that question. The recommendation reflects and supports the decision that was made by the director at the recommendation of the HPC. The additional information can be considered by the Planning Commission. Since the HPC did not have the opportunity to consider that information, staff forwards the recommendation provided or the decision provided by the director.
So drilling down a little more, is it the staff's recommendation based on the usual policy of following a decision of the HPC? And I understood from previous meetings that it's the policy generally of staff to abide by the recommendation that was made by HPC. I was wondering if that's in play here.
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe or tell me, or perhaps Ms. Whalen, the legal significance of having status as a contributing property?
I can start, and if the town attorney would like to jump in, that'd be helpful. The residential design guidelines provides two classifications for residences located in a historic district, contributing and non-contributing. The contributing structures are noted for their contribution to the town or significant events or significant architecture. The design guidelines would stress that great care and scrutiny must be given for changes made to contributing structures. Also, the design guidelines would prohibit demolition of a contributing structure. Non-contributing structures, there's guidance in the guidelines that talk about improving those structures towards a contributing status in the district. Staff would note that regardless of the build date, a non-contributing structure is viewed as supporting the district. So changes to those residences that are non-contributing in the districts should be done with care so that they can further support and enhance the district.
Thank you for that. And I had one more through the chair, if I may. If this property was, if the appeal was granted and the property becomes non-contributory, all future exterior changes would nevertheless have to be approved by HPC.
Thank you for that question. That's correct. Because the property is located in a district, all exterior changes and future development would be subject to review by HPC.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Burnett?
Thank you. Question for staff. I'm not familiar with the historical analysis report. Is this a new, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Who does that or?
Yes, thank you for that question. A historic analysis report such as the one provided with this appeal is not typically provided to the Historic Preservation Committee. It's not a requirement, as the Historic Preservation Committee review should be done on the town's dime, so to speak. Seldom, not often, they prove to be helpful and sometimes are requested by the Historic Preservation Committee. So there have been a number of them in the past few years. They're typically prepared by some historic architects or qualified historians. And in this case, it was a firm that consulted to a qualified historian to perform the analysis.
So when we do get an analysis report like this, we do know that it's from a qualified organization, or, I mean, we do not know that they have the history and they have the qualifications to make a correct historical analysis report. It isn't an architect that just may think they're great at historic homes or whatever. I just want to make sure that we're having a thorough report.
That's a good question. I'm not familiar with the firm itself, MBA. I am familiar and have worked with the historian, the consultant, for a number of years prior to my my job with the town in my previous position, and that person has done quite a bit of work. Familiar with them.
Oh, thank you for that.
Commissioner Raspy?
Thank you. Mr. Mullen, it appears that this property, at least from the information presented, has been abandoned for quite some time and has some significant disrepair. Can you tell us how the physical condition of the property should affect our analysis for removal from the inventory?
Yes, thank you for that question. So not much weight, if any, should be put on the structure's physical condition, because historic old homes, if they've not been kept up, will have disrepair and certainly wouldn't live up to current codes for buildings. And there are rehabilitation and restoration processes that can bring old buildings back to their former glory and former state. So the findings should be what are focused on, not the physical condition of the building.
Thank you for that answer.
Any more questions for staff? Okay. Okay, so we will now open the public portion of the public hearing on item number 1 and give the applicant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. Whoever will be speaking on behalf of the applicant, can you please come forward to the microphone, to the podium, and state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, everyone. I'm J.B. Wood. I am the applicant. I am a resident of 238 Bachman, which is the property immediately next door to 228 Bachman, which is the property in question. I, along with our historical experts here, I would like to submit that the decision by the HPC has put 228 Bachman at a dead end. Either, based on your decision tonight, you're going to enshrine a blight on this community that I'm going to suggest is going to be very difficult and may never be erased, or you are going to allow a practical, community-supported solution to this problem that honors all the design criteria of the community and the Almond District, but allows us to get rid of this eyesore that I really don't believe, and I'll try to support that anybody else is going to spend the millions of dollars that are required to take this project and turn it into something other than the 700 square foot abandoned commercial property, 20 years abandoned, with a completely, horrible effect on the property values in the neighborhood. Before I get into that, I'd like to introduce Bonnie and Marvin Bamberg, who have done the historical analysis. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Bonnie and I have between us over 90 years of experience in historic preservation, mostly in the South Bay area. We have done historic resource surveys for Santa Cruz County, the cities of Gilroy, South San Francisco, Woodside, and Santa Clara. I was part of a volunteer team that did the initial historic survey for the city of San Jose, and Bonnie wrote the first San Jose Historic Preservation Ordinance during her 3-year term as president of the Landmarks Commission. The issue before you tonight is a determination of a contributing structure for 228 Bachman Avenue. The staff report lists under findings, page 6, 5 elements necessary for this determination. I'll not read them to you, but the above 5 elements were addressed by our report and found to be not relevant to the existing house. The current designation of contributing is due to this historic survey by Anne Bloomfield in 1990. Her form completed at that time was very sparse, but noted with a check mark preliminary rating, which was listed in her symbols legend as historic and some altered, but still contributor to the district if there is one. Having done many such surveys, we can tell you that almost all begin as windshield surveys done by driving down the street and spending around 2 to 3 minutes documenting the observed structure from the street. No research is done on the structure and no in-depth analysis is performed. The documentation is based solely on a brief visual observation and the experience of the surveyor. A later phase of the survey to define a historic district is to document those buildings that exemplify an architectural theme and were constructed during a specific period called the period of significance. We have great respect for Ms. Bloomfield's work and reputation. However, the survey form for 228 Bachman, staff report page 21, is incorrect and did not advance beyond the windshield survey. The ordinance establishing the Almond Grove Historic District listed the construction of dwellings from pre-1895 to 1930. Our research confirmed that the house was constructed in the mid-1930s, and the house was first occupied in 1935, page 65 of the staff report. The survey form's estimate of the construction date is off by 10 to 14 years. The preliminary rating item on the survey form was checked, which is interpreted as a potential contributing structure, which is incorrect because our research has provided more information since the 1990 windshield survey. For a property to be a contributing structure, it must be architecturally compatible and be developed in the period of significance. Our analysis of the building concludes that it is incompatible with the architecture prevalent in the district and should be categorized as minimalist Spanish revival rather than Mediterranean style. The previous meeting of the Historic Preservation Committee on 7 January 2004 stated that they believed the house siding was probably wood originally and was replaced with stucco, which would not be allowed today.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? You will be given an additional 3 minutes at the end of the public portion. I'm sorry, you can't.
I do want to say we have 127 people.
I understand. You're going to have an additional 3 minutes.
I'll have time.
But I got it. Yeah, we just got to do this. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So at this time, I will be asking for, thank you, Mr. Wood, and like I said, your team will be able to speak for another 3 minutes again. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time by commissioners? No. Okay. We now invite comments from members of the public. If you have not already turned in a speaker card to staff, please do so at this time or raise your hand on Zoom. And when you are called to speak, please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. Okay. Do you have one? I have 2 others, so perhaps, is there a card out there that, okay, great. First, I have Marvin Bamberg. That's part of the applicant team still? Okay, sorry, thank you. And Bonnie. Okay, sorry, this is all I have, so. Are there any hands raised on Zoom right now?
There are not.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Terry McElroy.
Thank you.
I haven't appeared before this body for many, many years. I'm very thankful to be able to come over here and speak to you on 228 Bachman. I want to bring to your attention the 2004 Historic Preservation Committee discussed demoing this property. They had an unsympathetic look at the additions, that the siding was not original. The California roofs, all the pop outs, you can see like 4x6s that have been stuccoed over. That never happened in those days. That's not the original siding. Possibility that this home was moved onto the site. It is not something that you would want to preserve. It's an anomaly in this historic district. It's the worst one out there. In order for you to use your discretionary power, you need to look at the 5 items in the town ordinance. Is the structure, is it associated with any events that have made significant contribution to the town? Report says no. No significant persons are associated with this site. Report says no. There are no distinctive characteristics of type, period, or method of construction. It's not like 95% of the district. The structure does not yield information to the town history. The integrity has been compromised with all these additions. The original siding is not there anymore. These considerations are identical to the state's criteria. The structure is considered non-contributing due to the lack of significance. The property at 228 Bachman Avenue is ineligible for inclusion in the town register or the town heritage resource. It's not a historical resource as defined by the town code. So your discretionary power is, does it fit any of these things? It doesn't. It's not historical. In fact, it's probably, the anomaly of the entire district. Leaving it there is probably not preservation. It's the opposite of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you leave, do any commissioners have questions for Mr. McElroy? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that is filling out a card for item number 1? Any hands raised on Zoom?
There are not.
Okay. So applicant team, you can come up to the mic. You all have 3 more minutes to make a closing statement,
Okay.
and then we will have an opportunity to ask you questions
Sure,
afterwards.
great. Thank you so much. As you well know, both the Planning Committee and the HPC have more than one purpose. Obviously, it's to protect and perpetuate the history of the city. I understand that. But there's an additional purpose, which is the enhancement of property values and the stabilization of neighborhoods. This property, without a doubt, is bringing down the property values of every other house in the neighborhood. It has been abandoned for 20 years. It's commercial property. It went on the market. We have to look at this every day, this horrible building. It went on the market. There were no other offers made on this. None. None. We were the only offer. We bought this with the intention of building a home that we could live in, that's senior friendly, we could stay in the community and stay here for the rest of our lives. And we know how the neighborhood feels about this property. All of the surrounding neighbors support this building being demolished and another building being built. I put a sign-up sheet on a table in the front of this house for 2 days in the month of November. 127 community members took the time to fill out this questionnaire. 125 of the 127 people supported the removal of this project from the historic inventory and the demolition of the house. That is 98.4% of everybody who filled this out supported its demolition. Of the people who live on the street, 37 Bachman Avenue residents, 37 support its demolition, 0 did not support its demolition. The community wants this building brought up to the level of value and contribution to stabilize the neighborhood, to make consistency in the neighborhood, and to preserve the property values of the community. And we believe the HPC, there was no discussion of the impact of what would happen to this building and surrounding property values if it were left as it is. And we are going to give it back to the previous owner by contract. It will remain abandoned. And who is going to spend, as you all know, the price of construction is phenomenally expensive. Who is going to spend millions of dollars to build a livable home if the front of that structure has to be this building? Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, please, are there any questions for the applicant team from commissioners? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now close the public portion of the public hearing on item number 1, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, or propose a motion. Vice Chair Birch.
Just a quick question to staff, only because it's come up a couple times. We are not here about the demo. This is only the appeal about the contributing status.
That's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, thank you.
Barnett, sorry.
I'll start the discussion. I was on the HPC and involved in this decision. I have been greatly impressed with the report of MBA Architecture concerning the lack of historical significance of the property, and that there are no distinctive characteristics of type period or method of construction, and that the integrity of the property has been compromised such that the structure no longer has potential to convey significance. So I'll pass further discussion, but I would be willing to make a motion to that effect.
Commissioner Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. I have not in this most recent iteration, but I have served on the HBC as well, and so I'm well aware of their mission, and I think it's a valuable one for this town. We want to, wherever possible, save those structures that are worthy of saving and contribute to our town and the historic feel that it has. After visiting the site and going over the reports, I'm not sure that this structure is quite that structure. Going over the 5 criteria we're supposed to examine, I don't believe that the structure satisfies any of the 5. And there's some additional thoughts as well. I think Mr. McElroy, or maybe mispronounced your name, indicated the siding is no longer original. So I think that has altered the appearance of the structure. I think it's also worth noting that the building, even if it is removed from the inventory, will still be in a historic district. It'll still be subject to HPC review, and so the design guidelines will require that it be designed and built in such a fashion that it fits within that important historic district. And finally, I'll just note, in 2004, the HPC noted that this could be a possible candidate for demolition, and I suspect that nothing has improved in 20 years that would alter that decision. So for all those factors, I would suspect, and it is my feeling, that this should probably be removed from the inventory.
Thank you. And Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you for that. I just want to make a couple points, and I think the points made are very valid, what have been brought forward tonight. There is a home up the street on 250. It's a combination lot, 250 and 252. It was it's in the historic district. It was built in 1920, similar to what this home is in our inventory. And it looks very similar. If you look at it, the design, the gable roof, the stucco, it's pretty close. So I would assume that they were built around the same time and had the same kind of look. And I grew up on that block, and I remember this house. And second of all, when you said drive-by survey, windshield survey of the Bloomfield, I was part of that, and yes, it may have been called a drive-by survey of the homes that were being, if we hadn't done that, if Bloomfield hadn't done that to our town, we would have no inventory. It was a miraculous thing. It was a wonderful thing. And we're sort of covetous of wanting to try and keep some history and some resemblance of what our town has been like for our children, a time and place. So going on, anyway, it wasn't exactly a windshield survey. We were divided in groups, and we walked the different neighborhoods, and there was studies done on the homes. So it wasn't just a flash in the pan kind of thing. So I just wanted to clarify that. So those were just the 2 points I make, but I do hear what you're saying, and I don't think we're about trying to increase home values. I don't agree with that. I know our area has the homes are very valuable, but I don't think that's one of our goals, is to make sure that our homes become, very, just adding so much value. Anyway, thank you.
Commissioner Stump.
Just like to compliment MBA Architects on the report and also the presentation tonight, because I do think this was not an easy one to go through on paper. But I certainly appreciate the expertise of the two individuals sitting in the front row there and what they have presented here with credibility this evening. And so that would be my opinion at this point in time.
I would just like to echo my fellow commissioners' comments and say that a lot of, on paper, because of how it was originally classified, I understand why the HPC, and with the information that they originally had, I understand why the HPC made the decision. But now that we are presented with this more detail of the background of the property, I also agreed that I think that we're moving towards the granting of the appeal. And I think that, that's part of the reason why we're here in the process and part of the reason why the HPC exists. We saw a property earlier today that one would assume was considered, on a certain list, and it was not. So we understand that there are some, that not everything is perfect, but people really care about this specific district in town. And so I'm hopeful that if there's any future architecture and site applications and everything, that this space will be used in a way that people in the community are supportive of it. So is there anyone that would be willing to make a motion? Okay. Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you. Concerning item 1 on page 5 of the staff report tonight, which is an appeal of the Community Development Director decision determining that the residents remain a contributor to the housing district for property located in the Almond Grove Historic District, address 228 Bachman Avenue. I move to grant the appeal based on new evidence in the form of the report from MBA Architecture concerning the historic analysis of the residents, Exhibit 7 on page 59. The report was not available to HPC during the September 25th, 2024 consideration. Specifically, I find that the structure has no historical significance or architectural merit because there are no distinctive characteristics of type, period, or method of construction, and that the integrity has been compromised such that the structure no longer has the potential to convey significance. And I can make the findings for CEQA and for determination of a contributing status on page 6 of the staff report.
Commissioner Birch? Second. Thank you. Discussion? Okay, can I call the question? I ask for a show of hands in favor of the motion. Okay, opposed? The motion passes 6 with 6 no, 0 with no 0 opposition. Are there any appeal rights?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, anyone who's dissatisfied with the decision of the Planning Commission can appeal that decision to the Town Council. Forms are available in the clerk's office and online. There's a fee for filing the appeal, and the appeal must be filed within 10 days.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now be moving on to item 2, which is considering a request for approval to demolish an existing single-family residence, construct a new single-family residence to exceed floor area ratio standards with reduced side yard setbacks, construct an accessory structure with reduced side yard setbacks, and site improvements requiring a grading permit on a non-conforming property zoned R-18 located at 176 Loma Alta Avenue, APN 532-28-031, architecture and site application S-24-042, categorically exempt pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, Guidelines, Section 15303A, new construction or conversion of small structures. Property owner, the Thornberry 2021 Revocable Trust, dated November 4th, 2021, and the Donald S. Thornberry and Barbara J. Gardner Revocable Living Trust, dated December 21st, 2010. Applicant, J. Plett. Project manager is Maria Chavarine. And before the staff report, may I have a show of hands from the commissioners who have visited the property? Are there any disclosures? I would just like to say that while we were all huddled in the room waiting for this to open over there, I did meet the applicant and just said hello, and they said hi to me, but we did not discuss the property or anything to do with the application. So, Ms. Chavarine, will you be presenting the staff report for us this evening?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Maria Chavarine, Project Planner for the Architecture and Site Application for the property at 176 Loma Alta Avenue. The project site is 7,435 square feet and is non-conforming as to lot size and lot width. The neighboring lots are developed with a combination of 1- and 2-story single-family residences. The applicant proposes a 2,897 square foot 2-story single-family residence with a below-grade area that has portions which count towards the allowable floor area and a detached 529 square foot 1-car garage. The applicant is requesting reduced side yard setbacks for the main residence, resulting in 3 feet on the right side and 4 feet on the left side yard, as well as reduced side yard setbacks for the detached 1-car garage, resulting in 4 feet on the right side. The proposed residence exceeds the allowable floor area ratio by 964 square feet. Of the 1,505 square foot of habitable area below grade, 521 square feet is countable towards the floor area ratio as it extends beyond the footprint of the residence. The proposed residence will result in the largest by square footage and floor area ratio in the immediate neighborhood. The project complies with the zoning regulations for parking, height, and lot coverage. The applicant provided a letter of justification found in Exhibit 4 of the staff report, providing justification for the requested exceptions to the floor area ratio, side yard setbacks for the main residence, and side yard setbacks for the detached garage. The consulting architect reviewed the project and provided 3 recommendations for the project, as detailed in Exhibit 6. 1 of 3 recommendations were incorporated into the revised design by the applicant. The applicant provided justification for each of the recommendations found in Exhibit 7. The arborist report was prepared by an outside licensed arborist, Bow, Firestone, and Gardens, and peer-reviewed by the town's consulting arborist found in Exhibit 10. After publication of the staff report, an addendum was provided to the Commission with public comments and additional information from the applicant. Additionally, a desk item was also provided to the commission with corrected floor area numbers for the immediate neighborhood. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, oh yes, Commissioner Barnett.
Are the setbacks for the accessory structure from 8 feet to 3 feet an issue today or when a minor residential subdivision is filed? A reference to that in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. I think you're talking about the minor residential application, which we allow, if it was just a detached accessory structure, then go down to as little as 3 feet. So we just wanted to make it clear that even though it's an exception to the typical setback, there is a mechanism that allows it to go down to 3 feet.
Okay, that's helpful.
Commissioner Stump. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Barnett, finish, please.
Thank you, sure. What is the exact basis for the staff's recommendation to deny the request?
The project is considered the largest in the immediate neighborhood in terms of floor area and floor area ratio. That is one of the reasons why we are here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stump?
I know one of the concerns raised by neighbors was around the height of the home itself. And as I understand it, the homes on either side are lower than this particular house. How much lower is, or how much higher is, I guess, the roof of the structure that's under discussion?
Based on the plans that were provided as part of the exhibits, it appears that there is a 2-foot difference from the proposed structure to the structure that is across the street. And if you give me a minute, I'm happy to take a look at the specific address.
I was most concerned or interested in the houses that were next door on either side, because they appeared to be, I won't say significantly lower, but they're lower than what is being proposed.
Through the chair, I can lend some support here. I can't read the page number for your staff report, but on sheet A1-1 of the project plans, the streetscapes provide that the neighboring residences are at 22.5 feet and 20 feet respectively, so 178 and 172 Loma Alta. And I believe this residence is at 30 feet?
That is correct, 30 feet.
And so just through the chair again, for Commissioner Stump, if you look at that sheet, there are also homes on the next homes out. One is 26 feet and one is 25 feet, 6 inches.
I do have one question. I just have a clarifying question about the front setback. Right now it's proposed at 16.6 or something, and I was just wondering why in the item title and everything only the side setbacks were mentioned.
The applicant is not requesting an exception to the front yard setback. There is a section in the town code 2940050 which was used to compute the front yard setback, to compute the average front yard setback.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just for a little further clarification, there are opportunities if you have a sloping lot, if you have one home that encroaches in the setback, or if you have both, then there's different parameters. So an exception, as Ms. Chavarine mentioned, is not needed for the front setback in this case.
Okay, so we are really just making a decision based on the side yard setbacks, just to clarify for our discussion.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Stump, or Commissioner Stump, sorry.
Are there any mitigating circumstances as to why the basement has the amount of countable square footage? In other words, was there design consideration that drove a shift or something to take place for this basement?
Thank you, Commissioner Stump. So as I recall, the applicant provided information to the effect that there was a tree that they were trying to avoid, so they pushed the cellar element back or basement element back, and it is no longer under the enclosed footprint of the first floor, and therefore pursuant to our requirements, that counts as square footage. I'm sure they can offer additional comments on that as well.
Okay, we will now open the public portion of the public hearing on item number 2 and give the applicant and their team an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. So whoever is speaking on behalf of the applicant can come up to the podium. Please state your name, address if it's relevant. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jay Platt, Architect, 16 Linden Avenue. I would like to clarify a couple things. The height cited on sheet A-1.1, the house is 26.6 in height from the street relative to the neighbors. It's 30 feet maximum height. So as all the properties fall down, they get taller. So the house technically is only 26.6 from the street, not 30 feet. Okay, so relative to its neighbors, and that's illustrated clearly on sheet A-1.1. The 3-foot setback is for a chimney. The house itself is a 5-foot setback, not 3 feet. I'm not sure why it got into the staff report that we were requesting a 3-foot setback. I was always under the impression for 40 years that chimneys don't count, and they can always project into a setback. And maybe Joel can or Sean can address that. I need to read through this really quick because Blake Thornberry, the owner, would like to speak too. So the subject parcel is non-conforming in terms of area, width, irregular shape. At the inception of the project, we had an arborist look at the trees. We dug an exploratory trench exposing redwood roots on our property. We elected, the trees were struggling due to the drought at the time. So we elected to push the basement down the hill under the veranda, right, as a precaution for the trees. If the basement was all the way underneath the house, it would not count in any way in square footage. The mass of the structure would not change. The bulk of the structure would not change. The appearance of the structure would not change. The design of the house was also initially we discussed these issues with staff numerous times. They felt it was a reasonable request, but they did not have the power to make the determination for the extra square footage for a basement outside the footprint of the living area, and that it would be up to you only to make that determination. So we knew from the beginning that we were coming here. Let me try and hit these points because I know we got sidetracked here. Staff was elected to use the town public records for the staff report. And it does not include county records, which we believe should carry equal weight. As an example, the town records of the 2 adjoining buildings were found to be in error regarding the front setbacks. And our survey was correct, but the town record, the building records were wrong. And so when we get into the areas that were supplied by the county, like the house next door at 178, the county records say it's 2,660 square feet. The town record says it's 1,300 square feet. But when you look at the aerials on Google Maps, it's obviously bigger than 1,300 square feet. And the other thing is that homeowner, I'm sure that if they would have something to say about that if they were paying taxes of a 2,600 square foot house when the house is only 1,300 square feet. So I tend to believe the county records in that. And then when you factor in addition to the garage there, their square footage is up around 2,900 feet above what we're proposing. So there's another house larger as far as our above grade area. We think that there should be a distinction between the above grade area, right, that you visibly see in the mass, and it's just as a consequence of the tree that Some of the basement area happens to be under the veranda. And the portion that's under the veranda does meet the definition of below-grade space. And that is from the grade level to the ceiling of that space is only 4 feet at its maximum point. So it would be considered as it would not be factored in the floor area ratio if it was under the house. And then again, the setbacks along 178, were our ground level to the neighbor at 178, we have an average on the ground level of 6'6". Its closest point is 4 feet, just a point if you look at the plan. And the upper level is the same thing. We have an average of a 7-foot setback at the upper level to the neighbor at 178. And the whole bulk of our setback to 172 is 5 feet other than the chimney.
Thank
Okay.
you. Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant team or Mr. Platt at this time? Okay, you will have another 3 minutes after we hear from the public. Thank you.
Okay.
We now invite comments from members of the public. If you have not already turned in a speaker card to staff, please do so at this time or raise your hand on Zoom. When you are called to speak, please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. I have many cards and I apologize in advance for any name butchering. The first is Ayan Mutlu. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Ayhan Mutlu, and I live on 177 Loma Alta, right across 176 Loma Alta. I fully support my neighbors in their plans to build their new home. Their design is a great addition to the neighborhood, complementing existing architecture while bringing a fresh and thoughtful vision. You know Loma Alta Street probably, you've got a variety of structures, different kinds, and it's beautiful. It's kind of one of the most diverse neighborhood in terms of structure variety in Los Gatos, and he's gonna be a great addition to that, his house. And more importantly, in my opinion, true value of any neighborhood is its people. They are exceptional neighbors who contribute positively to our community. They've gone above and beyond by sharing their plans and showing willingness to compromise to address concerns of immediate neighbors. I'm on 176. I've got a nice mountain view because their home is like, single story, and from my porch, it's going to be gone. But I'm okay with it. It's just that, it's a beautiful addition. It's going to change the curb appeal of our neighborhood, and I fully support it. And given the significant investment they are making, I kind of know the costs. They're going to probably go up to $2 million to build that house. So they deserve the opportunity to accommodate their needs while enhancing the area. And I encourage everyone to approach this reasonably with compromise in mind. It's worth noting that the proposed home is comparable in structure size to the others in the immediate neighborhood. Let's all work together to keep our neighborhood harmonious and welcoming for everyone. Finally, I checked the staff report, and the package, they raised FAR, non-conforming setbacks, and height as reasons for denial. I disagree with their findings. They have some errors. For example, FAR in my house is 0.4. I have a basement, okay, and in the city records it says 2227, something like that. And then my setback to the neighbor is 4 feet. The whole house is 4 feet. The half of Loma Alta is non-conforming setbacks, and the height was they said it's highest in the immediate neighborhood, but my home is 28 feet. The height, the peak. If you look at it, I measured it. So it's 28 feet versus 26.6 feet. So it's not the highest structure in the immediate neighborhood. So with that in mind, I think I wish the best of luck to them. I hope they can build the structure, and we'll enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions for the speaker? No. Okay, next I have Allison Rilo.
Hello, my name is Allison Rilo. I live next door in the 178 property, and my husband is also here virtually. Firstly, we would like to thank the town staff for their analysis of the proposal. We support their conclusion that this building is far too large for the lot, and we agree with their recommendation to deny the proposal. We, of course, support our neighbor's ability to build a beautiful home with consideration for the neighboring properties. The town guidelines are created specifically for these situations, and if the applicants can modify the plans to be consistent with these standards and guidelines, our concerns would be addressed. As currently designed with greater than typical height and substandard setbacks, this building would significantly impact our privacy and sunlight and is simply not compatible with the neighborhood. This FAR is much higher than either the town standard or other neighboring houses, and it is disproportionately large, which would directly and negatively impact us as neighbors. Exception, as the town code states, may only be granted if the proposed project is compatible with adjacent homes. The data provided to justify the request for reduction of up to half of the required side setbacks omits the importance of context. We did share these concerns with the neighbors via letter. They invited us to a conversation. We had a discussion. The response was texted to us, and I quote, "After some discussion, we don't know how to alleviate your concerns any further. No modifications and no compromises were even offered. We are requesting a reasonable and equitable application of the design standards and guidelines, specifically to increase the side yard setbacks, reduce the total FAR, and create second floor setbacks to ensure compatibility with the adjacent properties." Thank you very much for your time.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Yes, Vice Chair Birch.
I'm curious about, and I'll ask the applicant more, the neighborhood outreach. When were you contacted about the project and about the size and able to kind of look through? Was this early on in the process, more recently?
Oh, very recently. I was invited maybe a day or two before their sign went up, after having asked and said, "I'm very curious. I'd like to see the plans. These are things that I'm interested in." And they took quite a long time to respond to us. My husband and I were out of the country when we had that conversation, and there was no further communication after that.
Thank you.
No, sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you, though. Any other questions? Commissioner Burnett?
Yes. Can you please explain in more detail your concern about the privacy issue?
Their privacy would affect their view into our backyard, into one of our bedrooms, and into our kitchen where we spend quite a lot of time. They have windows on that whole side, obviously. I mean, they need to have some windows, but we're concerned about how far it extends out into the back, and because it's so close to us, we just feel like they're going to be looking into our backyard, looking into our space. And we're concerned about the shade that it will create.
If I can follow up, Chair. I may be confusing this with another application, but would frosted windows be an acceptable alternative for you?
If they created the frosted windows on their own property,
yeah,
that would help.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. Yes, question. Thank you for coming tonight. Did you have concerns over water concerns?
Absolutely.
Were you happy with the engineer report that there would be the site drainage would be engineered to retain all the water?
I can't tell you that I'm an expert in that, so I have trouble knowing for sure that it's adequate. I can tell you we suffered a massive toxic flood in 2017, and our recommendations, which we followed through with a PhD soil expert, we have drainage on all sides of our much smaller house. And that's based on the current conditions of what exists next door. And so when they displace all of that soil, all that in this structure, we are concerned, very concerned that the water will come to our property.
So remind me, are you to the left of the new project?
Looking at the front door, I'm on the left.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I do have a few questions. One, you mentioned that you have issue with, exceeding the FAR, et cetera. And I'm sure, as you know, we can't deny an application or tell people that they can't build a 2-story house in a neighborhood that already has 2-story houses, which
Absolutely.
often brings up a lot of privacy concerns. So I understand the frosted windows. There's other mitigation techniques, but you also, have issues with the side setbacks. And this is a non-conforming lot, and there's a lot of non-conforming lots in the neighborhood that are narrow. And so I'm just wondering, what type of setback are you comfortable with, and kind of like how is your house setback from the property line too? Just like compare it, I know you bought it that way or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not, yes, but just kind of like for neighborhood compatibility and privacy issues.
Well, I guess I don't really know exactly what I'm answering. What is the exact question?
Oh, sorry. My question is like, what setback would you be comfortable with?
I'd like to have more of a line on the side where it's not like coming out and coming out and coming out. And I know that that's coming closer to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you reduced some of the above ground FAR, that some of those setbacks could be taken out, and if it's the closer in guideline with the 0.33, 0.34 that the other adjacent houses have, and it comes out of that in the second story, I'd be very happy.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, looks like that's it. Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Tom Valencia.
Hello, my name is Tom Valencia. I am Kelly Garton's partner, who is the homeowner at 172. Thank you for allowing us to present our concerns here tonight and to obviously speak with Blake and Jessica Thornberry. Our concerns are similar to the other side, to 178. The height of the structure, I know we addressed some of these earlier, but we still have some of these because there seems to be some discrepancy, and that some of this was just revealed this evening right now. So the height of the structure next to our house and the shade structure, or the shade report that we just saw, would shade our house, the internal and exterior of the house, for most of the day in many months of the year. Our house was built by Kelly's father in the early 90s, and when he built that, he took into account privacy of the neighboring structures. So most of the windows face the front or the back. There are limited windows on the side because we didn't want to look into neighbor's house, and the 2 windows that are on the first floor are offset. The upstairs windows that we have concerns with privacy go into the master bathroom and into the bedroom. So with that in mind, the reduced setbacks raise a little bit of concern there because they're a little closer windows, and kind of the situation and the view of the windows. We brought this up and actually invited Blake in at one point to see what our viewpoint was from the windows and the master bedroom and our outside upstairs balcony, just so we could get a better idea of what the impact would be. So some of that is our concern. We understand and support a young family buying a house, and with new construction, we understand it's going to change. We just want to see those changes made with community in mind and each other in mind, and our privacy kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? I'm sorry, Mr. Valencia, I do have one question for you. Same, just specific question that I asked the previous speaker, just about, so obviously with the setbacks, is there anything like more specific that you are looking for?
Yeah, so the chimney is very close and it's under a known tree canopy. That's concerning. And the setback to the house and the construction with that setback in mind to the trees, just like on 178, raises concerns there too. The stability of the trees. If that is impacted and later on, maybe the stability, maybe the tree falls or something due to this construction, because the tree report says that it could reduce the root structure up to 25%, but we don't know what that means, what that does in the future. If that's removed, roots hold soil that stays stable, right? So if that's removed, it falls in the future, who's liable for that? Does it fall in our house? Does it fall in their house? It's a concern.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, one more question with regards to, similar to what Commissioner Barnett asked earlier with some of the privacy concerns, things like frosted windows. I know that's not always like appropriate. Usually it's, in things like bathrooms or whatnot, but is that something that
It is, and we discussed that, and we're very, we want to work together to we understand that construction is going to happen, and we do support renewing neighborhoods with those things in mind. We did talk about that kind of a thing, and if we can come to some type of agreement, it just hasn't been written out yet and proposed formally to us.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, next speaker I have is Ron Eng. Sorry, thank you. Okay, I wasn't sure. It was thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I want to welcome the Thornberries to the neighborhood, and we do support the construction. However, the setback is a concern, and I want to reiterate kind of what some of the others said about the floor area ratio and height and so forth. But I think I'm speaking on behalf of Kelly, actually, because I live at 175 Loma Alta. And I live across the street, and I've known Kelly's family for over 40 years in the neighborhood now. But the setback is a concern. I think setbacks are there for a reason, for safety and for privacy. And by reducing the setback, you're ignoring these guidelines, these basic guidelines about safety and privacy to your neighbors. So I'm hoping that the Thornberries would reconsider the setbacks. And the privacy issue, Kelly mentioned that the second story window in the stairwell is her main concern because that looks into her bathroom. And so she's asking that they do some mitigation there if they could with their plans. Frosted windows or smaller windows there, and maybe if it's about lighting, perhaps a skylight might be in order. I know that when Kelly's father built their house, they put skylights in, and for that reason, so the house inside could have the light, but it wouldn't encroach on the privacy of their neighbors. Again, welcome to the neighborhood. We wish you luck with your plans, but I'm hoping that the Planning Commission will consider the setbacks again and keep in mind privacy for the neighbors. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Thank you. The next card I have is for Phil Couchy.
Thank you. It's Couchet. I've heard it all. I live at 16900 Cypress Way. I'm about a quarter mile away, and I'm here to support my neighbors and their concerns. My property is surrounded by 5 other properties, and every one of those properties has been rebuilt. And to my knowledge, not a single one of those properties asked for an exemption. Thanks to your predecessors and your staff, 4 of the 5 have gone very well. I think you have to listen to those neighbors that are most affected and what they have to say. And privacy is got to be considered. You look at the majority of those houses, and they've either been rebuilt or remodeled, and I suspect that a lot of the remodels have a smaller setback because that's the way they were built. This is new construction, new plans, new foundations. They can design it and build it however the commission decides it to be built. So they can make accommodations to their neighbors without having to deal with an existing wall or an existing foundation or existing whatever it may be. So again, I'm here to support my neighbors and would hope that the commission would listen to them and require the new construction to be with larger setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Paul Tuckfield. Will you please state your name and address for the record? And you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Tuckfield. I live 2 doors down from Lake. We were it's 162 Loma Alta, 2 doors down. We were happy to sign the petition when they first brought it by a couple months back. There was no real plans that maybe they had them, but a lot going on in those plans, and I know they were going to do their best to make everybody happy. I think you're trying. So I think the main reason I'm here is to support, hopefully, that there's some way that this can be done to get a lot closer, or maybe even within the guidelines for FAR and setbacks. I know it's a difficult lot to work with, and I want to say that we did see a front elevation of the house they're going to build there, and I do think it's going to be a pretty house. Great curb appeal. But I feel for my neighbors that you've already heard from, because it is going to be a pretty big place, and it's going to, in a lot of ways, take down the value of their own houses right next door. But I don't know that that's a fact, or it has to turn out that way in the end, So we ourselves did the same thing. In fact, I was flattered that you guys were, kind of inspired by our house. We did a very similar thing. We got granted a tear down for a Victorian house that was there 2 doors down, and we took pains to build the house looking exactly the same way because we love Victorian houses, but we did stay within all the codes, after talking to the Gartons and our other neighbors, and we were pretty scared of upsetting anybody too, but we just at least stayed within the guidelines. I know it's hard to please everyone, and like Ian said, I think almost all of us want to see the neighborhood get elevated in general. I'm really hoping that there's some way to just make what the other folks see out their windows work out. So no animosity or anything here, but I appreciate the work that you all did. I had a lot of trouble understanding the plan. I did want to say one thing too. I know there's many non-conforming setbacks in the neighborhood, but ours seemed to be cited as one of them. And I measured my own. When we built the house, we built conforming to the setback rules. We have an 8-foot setback, not a 3-foot setback at our house. I think, as Phil pointed out, many of those might have been grandfathered construction. And I always hated that whole grandfathering rule. It seems like people can get away with a lot because of it, but those are the building codes. I think the idea is not to perpetuate it more when there's a chance to correct or make these setbacks better with new construction. So I hope it doesn't, pardon the pun, set you guys back too much. I'm really hoping everybody can work something out. And so I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Tuckfield,
I'm sorry, just a
Stump.
really simple question again. What was your address again on Loma Alta?
162 Loma Alta.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, my next speaker card I have is Julie Thomas. Please state your name and address for the record. You can adjust, and please adjust the microphone, pull it all the way. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Thomas, and we live at 180 Loma Alta Avenue. We've lived there since 1998, and we too raised 3 kids on our wonderful street. Our main concern is that the plans of the house don't meet the standard FAR guidelines. It's quite a bit larger than what we were thinking it was going to be, and our main concern is that we don't feel that the plans for this home are compatible with our neighborhood and the size of the houses that are already there. So,
Thank you. Are you okay? Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much.
Thank
for coming
you.
Tonight. My last speaker card I have is for Gina Tuckfield.
Hi, I live at 162 Loma Alta, which is 2 doors down. About 20 years ago, we demolished and rebuilt our house. And we were very concerned about following all the codes and pleasing the neighbors. So like nothing like this happened with us because I felt that we were very, very considerate. So our house follows all the guidelines except for the front setback, which all the houses face the front, like they're very close to the sidewalk, so it just is kind of fitting. So I agree with that, with this house that they're building. The lot size that they are building on is not very big, and they just purchased the home in May of 2023. So I think that they know what their guidelines should be. And the way that they're kind of trying to get setbacks wider than what should be, I feel like is very unfair to the neighbors. And also, in their plans that they have, they state that our setback on the side to the house on the other side, away from them, they are stating that it's 3 feet. We measured, we are at 8 feet. So I don't know why they have that discrepancy. They're using that as an excuse to have a smaller setback, but it's not a real number. Like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's not accurate. And so reading that on the plans, I had a problem with it. The house itself, I signed the plans. I didn't read anything until I got this in the mail. The house itself is cute. It's Victorian. I love Victorian. My house is Victorian. But all the houses are, they look like they're all 2-story, but from the front of the street, they look like they're 1-story, and then the second story is set back, where this one is just, it's massive, 2-story, right at the sidewalk. So that makes it look a little bit out of place and a little bit massive. So I feel like that makes it a little out of character. And I think that exceeding the maximum floor area ratio by 964 square feet on a house that's 3,000 square feet is a lot. So I think Oh, and also I was at Allison's house. She's at 178, so she lives next door. I looked out of her kitchen window, and when you look out the window and kind of look to the back, she's going to see nothing but house. She won't see sky. She won't see anything. And then I know the other side, Kelly, her house is going to be shaded, and she has a big, beautiful garden that her mother planted. Her mother gardened every day. Her mother planted this garden and recently died of cancer, and Kelly has been maintaining that garden every day. So I don't think that should be shaded. Okay, my time's up.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Before you leave, are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. And I have no more speaker cards, so looks like that's correct. Is there anyone on Zoom with
Yes, there is.
Great.
First speaker will be Matt. Matt, you can unmute yourself.
Yes.
We can hear you.
We can hear. Okay. Good evening. My name is Matt Rilo, and I reside at 178 Loma Alta next door. My wife Allison has already spoken and addressed a number of our concerns, and also in response to some of the questions. So I'd like to just raise a couple of issues. First, just in the applicant's presentation, a comparison was made to our house size. And it is certainly true that our living area is not 1,300. It is more in the 2,600 range. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it's something like that. But our lot size is also larger. So any suggestion that was made that our FAR is comparable to what is being proposed was quite inaccurate. And, you know, as has been pointed out by multiple speakers, and I certainly appreciate this, the other neighbors who have spoken, the proposal is to build a much bigger house on a smaller lot. And that really is at the root of all the concerns. Second, there were shade studies submitted, and they demonstrate a detrimental impact on both sides, to both neighbors immediate. And on our side, you can see that especially later in the day, there will be significant impact. Particularly if you look at the June 3 p.m. graphic, you can already see the impact. But I'm also, I'm no expert on shade studies, but I wonder why they stopped at 3 p.m. because it's clear that the issue was increasing as the day was going through, and so some studies addressing 5 p.m. or later might be appropriate to demonstrate, especially in the spring and summer months, what kind of additional sort of darkness the very large and close by house will have an impact on us. So, having it effectively turn dark at our house by mid or late afternoon in the summer is pretty obviously a significant impact to our property. And it also struck me that, story poles have been implemented for other projects in the neighborhood, including one sort of behind us, I guess, on Johnson, could maybe allow everyone to really see how these proposed plans would impact them better. And we appreciate the opportunity to address our concerns, and I just want to emphasize again our gratitude to the staff for having done such a thorough analysis, and we obviously support their conclusion. And again, thank you to all the other neighbors who have spoken as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? No. Are there additional hands raised on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any other hands raised.
Thank you. So the applicant team now has an opportunity to come forward and provide a closing statement. You have 3 minutes, and then we will be able to ask you questions. So thank you.
3 minutes is not going to be enough. It's easy for 162 to build a conforming house because their lot is over 8,000 square feet and their frontage exceeds 60 feet. So, of course, they can build a house complying with setbacks without a problem. Our lot is half the width at the street of their project, of their house. We have a very difficult lot to deal with. The setbacks that we are proposing are much more in compliance with required setbacks than most of the houses in the immediate neighborhood. All the neighbors, they all look at each other. Right now, Blake and Jessica look at 170, 178. Their kitchen windows are right across from each other. We're going to offset them, better condition. The windows, the upstairs windows are from a child's bedroom, child's bathroom, from the master bathroom. Those are all private areas that the Thornberrys want privacy as much as the neighbor does. And by course of normal behavior, there'll be window coverings on those windows. They can also be frosted if you deem it necessary. Again, the issue that is pushing the house so far over the floor area is the fact that a portion of the basement that meets the rules for a basement happens to be under the porched veranda and not under the house due to the neighboring trees. In addition, 172, the Thornberrys, they worked with them. They agreed to eliminate a window upstairs that looked into their bedroom. So we've already agreed to that. We've also consented for our arborists to be on site when we are installing the foundation, and we will hand dig the foundation next to their tree. They know that as well. We've consented to their concerns. All the homes cast shadows on all the other homes in the neighborhood. If anybody is right now at a disadvantage, it's the Thornberrys, because they have a single-story house and they're surrounded by taller houses. And there are many houses that have a full two-story facade with a tall gable around the neighborhood. Thornberry's house will not be the only one. In addition, ours is broken up with the front porch. That probably projects out about 10 feet. And I also want to say Larry Cannon found our design perfectly acceptable for the neighborhood. He said so in his report. He had no qualms about the height. His only suggestion was to move the porch back, which we did. And we dealt with the column issue that he had on the back veranda that doesn't even face the street or impact the neighbors in any way. And Larry Cannon was in favor of this project. And he has been employed by the town to make these decisions regarding what is compatible, what is not, what is good design, and what is not.
Thank you. I'm sure that commissioners have many questions for you. So does anyone want to? I actually am going to start, if that's okay. Thank you. I'm going to start. I just want to clarify, because you're saying the only reason that it's exceeding the FAR is because of the movement of part of the basement that is not allow it to be, that doesn't allow it to be the below grade square footage that doesn't get counted. But according to the staff report, the FAR is exceeded by 964 square feet. And from what I saw, that basement portion is only about 500 square feet.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't say that. It's the magnitude. I didn't say the house would comply. I'm just saying that this massive amount is underground area.
Okay.
And it happens to be under the veranda, and it's just a technical issue that it has to count that way.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions. First, following up on the Chair's comment, how much of the square footage of the house is above grade?
On sheet A1, and it is above grade floor area is 2897. And in light of what 178 said tonight, the county records are correct, so they're at 2660, with square footage, and then they have another 275 square feet or in excess of that in their garage that counts as floor area, which puts them up at 2,900. So not only are there, so there's another house yet, the FAR, I never said their FAR was larger than ours, but their area is larger.
I appreciate
than
that.
ours.
I had a couple of more questions. We've talked about, and I think we have memorialized in our packet, that your clients have agreed to some mitigation on the windows. The two windows in the second story stairwell, for instance, and some of the other windows, they have already agreed to either frosting or some kind of translucent window element. I just wanted to confirm tonight that they are amenable to those changes.
No, I'm sorry, what, your question about the windows?
Yes, or the client has, we have some indication in our packet that they are amenable to translucent windows.
Yes, we would be, yeah, for the bathroom windows, they can be frosted. They're double hung windows. We could frost the lower half, you know, where you see the upper portion could be clear, wouldn't look down on anybody, and it would allow plenty of light. And we designed the house to gain solar access, so that's why it steps. The lot opens up like a pie, and so the house naturally steps as it goes down the hill.
I have a related question, if I may, Chair. I know we're dealing with reduced setbacks. Is there opportunity for any kind of plantings to help with privacy concerns?
To do what now?
Plantings. Or is there, since we have reduced setbacks, is there opportunity for plantings?
Yeah, we could do planting.
Thank you.
Yeah. The neighbors can do that too. We would work with the neighbors to come to some mutual agreement on how things would be planted so everybody's happy and not getting their something detrimental happening to their house.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your answer.
Other questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. So the same question, the water issue. I'm familiar with that street, and I know that is a issue on Loma Alta Avenue.
Yeah.
So are you satisfied with the engineer report and how the water would be retained?
Yeah, 178 is uphill, so the water is going to flow from uphill to downhill. Doesn't go the other way, so that's kind of a moot point. But in addition to that, the basement and the site drainage, everything has been thoroughly engineered by a civil engineer. It's been reviewed by the Town Public Works and Engineering Department, Corvell Sparks, and we don't have all the water will be retained on site, and it will be percolated back into the ground on site. So there's not going to be an issue with water flowing uphill.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Birch.
So you've heard from a lot of neighbors that there's obviously concern about the size of the house. And what I would want to know is there some ability in the design to compromise and bring some of the size and the massing down to perhaps bring it a bit more in line with what the neighborhood compatibility would be, perhaps allowing a bit more of a step back on the second floor a bit to allow for a bit more privacy?
Well, the setback on the second floor would destroy the design of an Italianate, because they're not that way. They're basically a vertical house that goes, and that's what the Thornberrys would like there. It's an efficient use of this parcel because the parcel is narrow. So stepping it back, it's going to result in an unattractive house. That's one of the reasons that this design has been chosen. When you read our letters, there's 3 bedrooms upstairs, all of modest size. The boys will share a bedroom. They have a girl that will have a modest size bedroom. All the children will share a bathroom. And then there's a modest, not an overly large master bedroom and bathroom. And that's it.
So am I hearing you say no, there's not going to be any ability to reduce any sizing?
Much of a possibility. Yeah, and the kids are young. They want the kids to be upstairs with them.
That answers my question, Jay.
There's really no way to get a house that's going to function for them by reducing it. We don't think any of the spaces are excessive in any way. If you look at the dimensions on the plan, I indicate room sizes, And you can see in furniture, you can see that this is not a large house.
Thank you.
Small site.
Commissioner Barnett and then Commissioner Stump.
Oh, thank you. I may be wrong, but I thought I recalled reading in your letter of justification that Mr. Cannon had approved the mass of the building, mass in the size. And I didn't see that, myself.
Well-
He didn't comment one way or the other as far as I know. Do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, well, he may not have spoken to it, but he didn't say that it's too massive. If he felt that there was a problem with the mass and the bulk, and the facade is broken up with the front porch, he would have made an issue out of it. That's his job, and he did not do that. And so he made several comments, and we took them seriously, and we accommodated his recommendations.
Well, except for two.
Well,
The porch
that has to
and-
do, there's some minor things. It has to do with column placements in the rear
Right.
veranda. But what the neighbors see in the front, the street presence of the house, he asked that the porch be pushed back some. I wanted the porch to cover the steps as you walk up, but we gave that up. So we pushed the porch back, and the steps will be exposed to the weather. That's the only difference, okay?
And
So we agreed with that.
And through the chair, if I may, one of the neighbors expressed concern about the fireplace being under a canopy of trees. I just wondered if you had a comment about that.
I don't believe that's the case, but we can check that. If that's an issue, then we don't have to do a full height fireplace. It's part of the ambiance of the house, looks nice. But it's not a true fireplace that burns wood. So if we had to eliminate the chimney, we could do that if it was going to interfere with the tree or be in any way a detriment to the tree.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stump.
I realize when you build on a lot of this size, it's obviously very challenging and also challenging to meet the requirements of your client as far as living space. How do you go about, when you take a look at a non-conforming piece of property like this, balancing what the standards are versus what your client needs? And what is, did you walk into this realizing you were going to require exceptions to the standards?
Yeah, that was an assumption. Anytime you have a non-conforming lot like this, I think that, there are homes that have greater reduced. We could have asked for more, but we didn't. And we, and been within keeping of the neighborhood character. So we took a middle of the road approach, like, okay, the setback's 8 feet. There are other houses, we said, well, this house is 3 feet. This house is 2 feet. We didn't go that far. And we have a very unusual shaped lot. We could have asked for that legitimately, and maybe taken even a route through DRC and gotten approval. But we didn't. We're going with the 5-foot setback, which is greater than on 172 side, which is greater than probably most of the homes on the immediate neighborhood. And then we have 6'6" and 7'0" against 178, when 178 has a larger lot, a larger house, and they have a 5-foot setback against us. But on our side that faces them, we're 6'6", average, right? And there's only one little point that is 4 feet. And I suppose if the commission wanted us to take that nook and move it over and straighten it out in line with the kitchen, we could do something like that. And then the 4-foot setback would become probably 8. We could shave, we could move that element, that nook element over a foot and achieve a 5-foot setback, like we have on the other side of the house. There are things that we'd be willing to do that we just need direction on. But the essence of the house, having all the bedrooms upstairs, the Thornberrys want the family, the kids to be upstairs with them while they're young and growing up. And, yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Birch, or Vice Chair Birch.
A little bit of a different topic, but I had been taking some notes when different people were speaking. And I would like to understand what the neighborhood outreach was. Sounds like a lot of people are saying that they're seeing things for the first time very recently. How far back did you start reaching out to neighbors? How did those conversations go?
Okay, I can, yeah.
Yeah, anyone from the applicant team can come up and answer these questions. Thank you very much.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My name's Blake Thornberry. I'm the property owner. As soon as we got the designs completed and we had the approval to put the sign in front of our house, we went and we did the town recommended process of reaching out to all the neighbors. And I believe this was October 6th. And we hand carried our scroll like this to each and every one of our neighbors. We invited our neighbors over to our kitchen table to review the documents. So all of the neighbors, 2 sides on either side of our side of the street and then 5 on the other side, we brought the full roll of documents to them. I mean, that's, and we reviewed everything. And the feedback we had at the time has been positive, but at the time, but anyways, yes, so we did outreach. We reached out to everybody early and we collected feedback continuously. We've worked with our neighbors as well on their feedback to see if we can accommodate it. You know, Tom and Kelly, I went over there. Yeah.
When did you reach out?
178. I believe the record show is like October, at least October 6th. I think I have a message. I remember I have a text message from sending it to Allison saying, I have some records we'd like to show you. So it was October 6th, I believe.
It's Jessica Thornberry. I was the one that actually reached out to a lot of the neighbors and have them look at our plan and did their signature on the document, that neighborhood review, and then we submitted to the town. That was early October, like various between like October 5th all the way to like November or something like that. But like that's all in the document that was sent to the town already. Thank you.
If I may just clarify something, it was said that maybe there was a lie about 162 setback, and the information was obtained by the town's GIS system, and that's what we had to go on. So there was no lie. It was just we relied upon town information to come up with that 3-foot setback. And if that was not right,
I think that the question was answered, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there additional questions for the applicant team? Yes, Vice Chair Birch.
Yeah, I'm going to ask, I guess, a bit of a blunt question. We could spend quite a bit of time here discussing the sizing and coming up with suggestions and move towards the continuance. And I'm only going to speak for myself. I have not heard my other planning commissioners. If, from what you said earlier, there's not really going to be any movement on the change of the design, I would rather know that and have a more efficient conversation than spending about an hour of everybody's time coming up with ways we think we might be able to move towards the continuance.
Yeah, well, like I said, we could probably do something with the nook. And if you look at the plan, if you have that, that's the closest element to 178. And that could move over. But if you look at the plan, you know, the bedrooms are minimal and there's really no room to make the house narrower, or we would do it. But we could move the nook, and the nook, you know, would be a help. Possibly moving the nook for the neighbor and their views.
I have a follow-up question for that, and this might be also for the owners, but is there, I mean, obviously the nook, you said adjusting some of the chimney situation, but is there any possibility of reducing like this above ground square footage to come down closer to that far, or is that something that can't happen? And again, I think this is probably also more for like the owners to answer.
I think for a 3-bedroom home that has one bathroom upstairs for the 2 kids or the 3 kids, 2 bedrooms, and then the master bedroom that has one bathroom, there's not really much room to reduce the rooms or eliminate rooms. I think that, again, they're all of modest size. They're not excessive in any way. And it just has to do with the site is non-conforming. And I really don't understand, you know, we're proposing a new house, and the setbacks we're proposing are more in compliance
I
with
understand
the
about the
rules.
setbacks.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
I just specifically was asking the question about the overall above ground square footage, but it sounds like that's a no. So
Yeah, I
thank
think-
you.
yeah, the
That's-
house-
you answered my question. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, the house
Thanks.
comes in about
Nope, that's it.
2,800
Good.
square
Thank you.
feet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Smaller than 3 others. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
We got it. Okay. Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. So from what I hear, one of the main areas of a problem is the front setback. So is there any way to, I thought we were talking a lot about the front as well.
Yeah, the front back is in compliance with the rules. We average, I think you can average the 2 setbacks on either side, and then whatever that number is what your allowed setback is, and I think we exceed that.
Yeah, I realize that, but it seemed a lot of the neighbors were saying the way the house was coming up was too close to the street. That's what I heard.
Well, the porch is where the setback starts, and that is in compliance with the 2 neighbors on either side. Just like 162 mentioned, they got their front set, they're closer than their front setback because that's what the neighbors have. So our proposal it meets the minimum or exceeds it. And I don't know, Sean, if you have a calculator, if you can calc real quick. I think we're allowed to get even closer under the rules. But
It
we're
just
not.
seemed like that's
So
what I
by
seem to have
default,
been
yeah,
hearing.
because Larry Cannon asked that we reduce it. So we didn't move the house forward and reduce it. We left the house where it was and we pushed the porch back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think if there are no more questions, we are going to close the public portion of this hearing on item number 2, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, propose a motion. So I do have a question of staff just to get us started, and this was about the chimney and the applicant team, Mr. Plett, was stating that historically has not been counted as part of the setback. Can we get a clarification on that?
Thank you. So the code does allow for some architectural projections into the required setbacks. Here we have them already moving the building wall into the required setback, so it doesn't contemplate a further encroachment. So that's why staff looks at it as a 3-foot setback.
Okay.
But there's also an argument that could be made that if a reduced setback is approved, then that might be something people would consider, but that's not generally how staff would look at it.
Okay, thank you. And then just also to get us started on this conversation, can we just get some clarity on how below grade square footage is typically taken into account, and why this is a little bit of a different situation than we've typically seen in the past, including like the history of that?
So thank you for that question. I can start. Below grade square footage was previously considered cellar or basement. It came out of a policy from years ago, which was eventually codified into the town code. Below grade square footage, which is included in the town code, is intended for to reduce above grade massing, so in lieu of above grade massing. And as such, it's exempt from the FAR calculation. There's some stipulations to that, including that if the below grade area is in multiple places, so if you have 2 basements, or if you have a basement that extends beyond the footprint of the enclosed building above, that portion that extends outside counts towards the FAR.
Okay, thank you. And then this is maybe a question for a town attorney, but this is like the intent and the original, application of this being exempt from the FAR is there is the statement about the in lieu, but I don't really see how we have legally been able to enforce that, or we just continue to say, hey, reminder, this was meant to be in lieu of above ground square footage. So could you kind of explain how we're supposed to address this?
At the end of the day, it's going to come down to the findings that the Planning Commission has to make in order to approve the FAR. So we could probably turn to that and review what they say. Okay, so required finding to exceed FAR. The design theme, sense of scale, exterior materials, and details of the proposed project are consistent with the provisions of the landmark and historic preservation overlay zone and the adopted residential development standards. And the lot coverage, setbacks, and FAR of the proposed project are compatible with the development on surrounding lots.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other commissioners, do we have questions of staff? Yes, Commissioner Barnett.
So our town attorney has opined in other cases that there's no California law that supports a right to light and air, but nevertheless, we're requiring shadow studies. So what's the intent in terms of the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission when it comes to shading?
I think that's a function of the town's obligation to do environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. And so the intent is to determine whether there's any impact on the physical environment as a result of the proposed project. It also helps to determine the effect on the neighboring properties.
Right. I would offer or add that it's really to disclose the information of potential impacts, right? Which to the town attorney's comments is that's the whole point of CEQA, an environmental review, is to disclose, potential impacts. So that's how we look at it.
Understood. Thank you.
Other comments and questions? Okay, Commissioner or Vice Chair Birch.
I don't really have a question of staff, so I guess it's more of a discussion. Obviously, we see that the house is quite large, that there's quite a bit of concern within the neighborhood. It doesn't sound like there's going to be a compromise in reducing the size for whatever reasons. So I am a little reluctant to get into a big discussion on a continuance and any thoughts on, redesign or whatever. I'm not sure that we would get there anyways. So I'm a little curious how my other commissioners feel about whether we're going to, whether you feel approving it as it is or denying and letting them go on to council.
Commissioner Raspy, did you have something to say? Thank you.
Sure. I'll opine. I'll say I like the design. I like it's pretty from the outside. The layout works. I understand wanting to have all the bedrooms in the single area, having a living space below. I would like to live in this house. That being said, it's big. It's according to the architect, it's 2,897 feet above grade, not even counting the basement space. And the permissible FAR on this lot is 2,454 square feet. So without counting the basement space, we're still over the permissible FAR limits. Now I understand it's a small lot, a non-conforming lot. And so I'm amenable to making some changes or some exceptions to make a workable house, because I think maybe if we stick to the strict limits of what's required, it's going to be difficult to build a house in 2025 for a large and growing family if we stick to our strict limits. But I think perhaps this design pushes the limits a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. Looking at the design, I don't have any great answers. what I noticed was it looked like the ground floor area had a different common area spaces. The living room, there's a lounge room, there's a dining room, and I think that was used that way because you had to create that much space so you could create the number of bedrooms above it. If you could somehow move a bedroom downstairs, which I don't know if that works, it doesn't work. That's an idea, and I don't want to get into the discussion, as Vice Chair says, of redesigning this house. But off the top of my head, I think I've seen that in other homes, a way to reduce the overall massing of the building. But, so again, I like the design, but this house, to me, does not work on this lot in its current configuration. There's got to be a way to skin it down a little bit. Those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Stump.
I would agree with the comments that Commissioner Raspy just made. It's a kind of a common theme, too big of a house, too small of a lot. And so I just think we've got to be very cautious in moving forward, especially, again, with so much neighborhood feedback as well. And again, I want to compliment the neighbors tonight and everybody who spoke. This has been a very civil process, and everyone's tried to be constructive and friendly, and just really appreciate that.
I have similar feelings. I also agree that I think that architecture and design of this home is beautiful, and I do really think that the style fits with the neighborhood. And I also believe, because it's a non-conforming lot, and with this neighborhood, the reduced side setbacks are not something that I am as concerned with as the overall how much exceeding the FAR. That's the thing that I feel like it's difficult for me to make the findings on. And so I just want to state that, because if we decide to go in the direction of giving this applicant some feedback, and we always have the opportunity to reopen public comment to ask just a very specific question about things for them. So I'm curious what my other fellow commissioners think about that, because I do understand how it seems like, oh, it's 4 feet, but really it's only 4 feet at one spot. We can push in the nook. There are some adjustments that can be made because of the shape and size of the lot. And I do truly believe that the side setbacks, although there are some privacy concerns, things could be mitigated and that could be worked through. But again, I'm not comfortable recommending or adding conditions of approval that would require complete redesigns of the property. That's not fair to the applicants. So, but I think that if we can give some feedback about what areas we are most comfortable with making findings on, that will be really helpful for this, whatever direction this application ends up going moving forward. Vice Chair.
Okay, I'm following you now. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we have had the last 2 meetings have had these unusual lots with setbacks that are troublesome. So, and it did sound like there was some movement with parts of the house and the setbacks on the sides. Unfortunately, I just don't think that solves the greater problem, which is just the overall sizing of the house and the impact that that has on the immediate neighbors. So I think while there are some problems here that I think we could talk through and say we've, got a compromise or something there, I'm just not sure it solves the greater problem.
Yes, Commissioner Barnett.
We would have to make a finding under 2940.079C2 that the lot coverage, setbacks, and FAR are compatible with the development of the surrounding lots. And here it would be significantly larger than the neighbor homes in the vicinity. The owner certainly entitled to buy this property, but knowing the size and that it's non-conforming, that a house for the family would need to be built, seemingly would have considered that and not assumed that the Planning Commission would rubber stamp what they came up with. My heart goes out to them. I think it's a very difficult situation. I generally like the plans and think the plans are very attractive, but I don't think I can make the necessary findings to support the application.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, I would be in favor of wondering if the applicant would consider coming back to us with a redesign or you've heard all the areas of concern, and if you could make some accommodations in the main areas, some way, because it'd be a shame to lose it. And you're so talented as an architect, I could see you somehow making it work and coming back to us. I don't know if that would be something you would consider, or you need more direction from us, but it seems like you've heard a lot of what the concerns are, and if that would be something you would consider.
Chair, if I may, so it seems to me, if I'm hearing my fellow commissioners, we really have kind of two choices. We can either deny the application this evening, or we can grant a continuance. And so we can either make that decision on our own, or if we want, we can ask the applicant if they have a preference. I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with the town procedure. Is there a difference? Would it take more time, for instance, to restart the whole process over again, or continuing it? Is that faster? Actually, question for staff, is there a better system?
I'd say there's no perfect system.
Okay.
So if you continue it and they make changes, but that's still not satisfactory to the Planning Commission, then you may still up in the denial, and then that can be appealed. We've also seen instances where Planning Commissions denied it, they haven't gone through that exercise, and then we have one recently that now was kicked back to the Planning Commission. So two different loops, but generally similar length of time.
Perfect. Then my suggestion would be, Chair, to ask the applicant, but that's just one commissioner's thoughts.
Yes, I think that before we reopen that public comment to ask the applicant a question, I just want to ask the commission if we feel like we can give enough direction to get to a spot where if X, Y, and Z is met, then we would be more comfortable with relooking at this application and making the findings, because I don't want to ask the applicant to spend a lot of time, money, energy doing that without specific direction. So, okay, Commissioner Stump.
Of course, if I'm the applicant, I'd love to have a target that we're going to ask them to shoot for. The initial target would have been don't exceed 2,454 square feet. That would have been a target. They're now at basically 3,947 total floor area. There were other homes in that area that were over far, but by 400 and something square feet, not 964 square feet. So is there, what will we approve as far as exception for this lot in trying to support this family in building a home? I think it's important for us to be able to give some guidance to that. And remember, I'm the rookie commissioner, so what do I know? Thank you. Thank you.
So maybe first we should then, I think that we could probably figure something out with regards to the setbacks, because that's something that we've done before and there's a little leeway that we already have from the applicant. Would we be comfortable saying, don't exceed the FAR? That's what we want. We don't feel like because of the size of this lot that exceeding the FAR is okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Birch.
I think that's a slippery slope, because if we don't, I don't think we can say you're allowed to exceed the FAR by so many square feet that we're okay with that. I think you're setting a precedence there. I don't know about the other houses or when they were built or any of those things. So I think that could be a slippery slope here.
Commissioner Burnett.
Well, I think we have all these interrelated issues about the lot size, the setbacks, the architecture. I don't see us starting to deal with different elements. That's the architect's job. And so I think we need to make a straight up decision about continuing it for the applicant to perhaps revise the plans based on the feedback from the commission, or deny it. And I would be in favor of the latter course of action.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners is that we don't feel like we can give specific enough direction in an appropriate time frame for a redesign that we can guarantee that we would approve or be happy, that would fit with the neighborhood, and we're not sure if we'll be able to make the findings required to approve this. So we're moving towards.
I would just add one additional. I think I would be reluctant to adding specific comments, but the public has added and provided significant comments. So I would say that any redesign should incorporate, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 main thought lines coming from our public comments. Take those to heart, bring those back to us. And I look forward to seeing a thoughtful redesign.
So you are in favor, you want to continue?
Again, I would leave it up to the applicant whether they would, but I would favor a continuance, yes.
Okay. I'm just going to clarify with staff. Can we open public comment to ask one question of the applicant, a yes or no question?
Yeah, and I wouldn't even characterize it as reopening the hearing. I would just say that you have a question for the
Clarifying
applicant.
question for the applicant. Okay, we'll give you guys a minute to, touch base with each other, but the question is, would you rather have a continuance to a date certain? Yes, to a date certain, agreed upon, or denial and go that course. So you can take a moment to discuss, please. Can staff please explain the 2 courses of action that what happens after if we offered a continuance versus if we denied the application? Thank you.
So this is the challenge of opening something up with a simple question that's followed by questions, which is not the intent. So if the Planning Commission denies the application, then obviously there's appeal rights. Even if the Planning Commission approved the application, there's appeal rights. So that would be the next step in the denial. Obviously, the other is if it's continued with some direction, we would look for some good faith judgment from the architect as far as how long it takes them. They think it'll take them to revise the plans, and then pick a date certain. And if for some reason we're not able to meet that, we'll just continue it from there.
Does that clarify? And for the appeal, that is appealed to the body above us, which is Town Council.
Correct.
Thank you for discussing and everyone here tonight for being patient, including staff and everything. And Mr. Platt, I know you have so much more to say to us, but if you could just give us a yes or no, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so the question is, yeah, we will take the continuance, and can I ask a couple questions? It'd be easy, just so I know where you guys are going.
Why don't we discuss a little bit more about, we'll offer, yeah.
So staff has a good handle on the tenor of the commission's comments, and so our recommendation would be that the applicant contact staff anytime this week to talk about what was discussed tonight.
Okay, great. And then in our motion for a continuance, we will summarize the key points, and staff, they know more technical detail than we do. So thank you.
You can't give me one question?
I believe that because we closed public comment, I'm legally not allowed to give you a minute, but the town attorney, thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, so are there any final comments now that the applicant would like to offer or is interested in, doing a continuance? Again, I think that biggest concern that we've heard from the public, from commissioners, with regards to being unable to make the findings is exceeding the FAR. Is there anything related to the setbacks that we would like to give a little bit more specific feedback or direction on?
Sorry, we discussed privacy
Okay, privacy.
and the chimney issue.
Vice Chair Burge.
Yeah, okay, so to be a bit specific. So if we're looking at the side setbacks, there's a couple things that, the nook in the kitchen was brought up, being able to reduce that back, bring that 4-foot setback in. There's even an opportunity to look in the dining room. There's a bump out that gets you a 5-foot setback that could be looked at it being pushed into. Sounds like the fireplace can be adjusted based on what the architect said. So I think there are some non-invasive ways to make some modifications to get the setbacks a little bit farther back so they are not quite so encroaching on the neighbors. I think the other thing was the privacy with the windows. I think for the upstairs windows, if we're going to specifically talk about the restroom windows and the kids' windows that look out onto the neighbors, we would ask that those be frosted, or a clerestory window in the bathroom would still get you light. As far as on the stairs, though, I would ask the applicant to work with the neighbor on the placement of the windows and the stairs so that it's not looking into somebody's restroom. I think then with those things, perhaps there's an ability to push some of the square footage back to the porch a little bit more rather than, on the front of the house to adjust some of the square footage. I don't know. That's the setbacks and the privacy. I don't know how to fully adjust the FAR. That's going to be a bit more of a challenge, but you do have a good architect. So I do think he can get there. I appreciate that, Shay, but you cannot.
I also would like to add that I know that we've seen some privacy issues with some stair windows, but then the placement of the windows being higher up to where, people walking up and down, it's, can't see out. So that might already be the situation or be a solution. But I just, that's something that, just for some of the neighbors and those concerns, that's something that has happened before. So that sounds good. My one other comment was just rectifying the situation, obviously with the chimney already been discussed, but just ensuring that that is clarified with regards to the tree root situation with the arborist. So just kind of following up with that, and just so we can have some clarity with that, so that the neighbors' concerns are addressed with regards to it. Obviously no one in the neighborhood wants a tree to be falling down. So just making sure that that is fixed or, figured out. And Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, I know there was some discussion about height, but then when it was discussed, it was what, 26.3 feet or something. So it was probably because of the slope of the lot, that's what influenced seemingly the height of the building, but I know that height was discussed.
Just a question for staff. Do we have to, if we're going to continue it, do we have to continue it to a date certain, or can we leave the date open?
We'd recommend continuing it to a date certain. We can provide you a date. Otherwise,
Can staff suggest a couple of dates for us?
I think the first date I would suggest, where are we, January 22nd? Knowing how quickly Mr. Plett may be able to do it, I would say the soonest would be the 26th of February. But again, if that's too little time, then we will just continue it from that date to a date after doing further consultation with the applicant.
So just to clarify with staff, it's easier to always move the date, push it out further. We're not going to be able to move it up.
Correct, without the same implication of renoticing and the applicant incurring those costs.
Thank you. Okay, so the 26th of February is looking like, can I get maybe a nod from Word? Okay. We can always move it out further if necessary, but okay. Or
March
12th.
12th.
And then March 26th. There will be a meeting on February 26th, and then March 12th, and then March 26th. Okay. Yeah. Is that, I think that staff just needs to probably confirm that we don't already have a full calendar on that date before we.
It's perfectly fine. Great.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion? Vice Chair Birch.
I will try. I move that we continue the request for approval to demolish an existing single-family resident, construct a new single-family residence with the exceeded floor area ratio and reduced side setbacks, construct an accessory structure with reduced side yard setbacks and site improvements, requiring a grading permit on a non-conforming property zoned R-18 located at 176 Loma Alta Avenue, and that we will continue this to March 12th with all the comments made from the Planning Commission during the discussion. And the public.
Is there a second? Commissioner Raspy seconds. And so I will call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. And because it's a continuance, there are no appeal rights.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Can we have a bathroom break? How do we just say we'll be back in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes?
You're going to adjourn?
10.
Yeah.
Why don't we split it and we'll come back at 9:30, 8 minutes. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Move on to item number 3 on our agenda tonight. Wow, only item number 3. Okay. Move on to item number 3, and this is to consider an appeal of a Development Review Committee decision approving a subdivision of one lot into 2 lots on property zoned R-110, located at 220 Gatos Road, APN 527-25-005, subdivision application M-24-011, categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15315, minor land divisions. Property owner is Union School District, applicant is Robeson Homes, LLC, and the appellant is Mary Kagemi. I'm so sorry for that. And the project planner is Jocelyn Shootman. Before the staff report, can I have a show of hands of commissioners who visited the site? And are there any disclosures? Great, thank you. Ms. Shootman, will you be presenting the staff report for us tonight?
Yes, thank you. This evening, the Planning Commission is considering an appeal of the Development Review Committee decision approving a subdivision of one lot into 2 lots on the subject property. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the 9-acre property into 2 lots, resulting in an approximate 4.3-acre parcel and an approximate 4.8-acre parcel. No development is proposed with this application. As described in the staff report, the proposed lots are both in compliance with the minimum lot size, lot depth, and setback requirements for the zone. On December 10th, the Development Review Committee approved the subdivision application, finding that the application was in compliance with Town Code and the Subdivision Map Act. On December 20th, the decision of the Development Review Committee was appealed to the Planning Commission. On the appeal form provided in Exhibit 8, the appellant outlines 10 reasons for the appeal. The appellant has also provided supplemental information found in Exhibit 9. The applicant provided a response to this appeal as outlined in the staff report and included in Exhibits 10 and 11. An addendum and desk item report have been provided to the Commission with supplemental information from the appellant, as well as public comment received after the distribution of the staff report. This completes staff's presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Shootman. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Yes, Vice Chair Birch.
Yes, this is for the town attorney. We got a desk item today, and I wondered if you've had a chance to go through this and if there are any comments, anything in here that we need to take into consideration during our discussion tonight.
Thank you. Yes, I have reviewed the correspondence, and the contents of the correspondence are correct because the assertion is that the town zoning needs to conform with the town's general plan, and that's true. That is a state law, and the town is working toward bringing all of its zoning codes into compliance with the general plan. But that's not really relevant to the issue that's before the commission tonight, because tonight the commission is being asked to hear an appeal of a subdivision that was approved. And the applicable findings for a subdivision are in Government Code Section 66474, and those are outlined in the staff report. And one of those findings is conformance with the general plan. The general plan designation of the property is public. And so the question will be, is subdivision of a lot consistent with a public general plan land use designation? And staff's position is that it is.
Thank you. Commissioner Raspy?
Thank you, Chair. As long as we're talking to the lawyers, last time this was before us, we were introduced to a couple of statutory schemes, that is the Surplus Lands Act and the Naylor Act, and I just wanted if council could briefly address their applicability to this matter that's before us this evening, that is the subdivision.
Yes. So the town is subject to the State Surplus Lands Act, which requires that the town offer land that it plans to dispose of to affordable housing developers or recreational space providers before it disposes of the property. There's a similar state law that applies to school districts, and that's the Naylor Act. And as a general proposition, it requires that school districts offer land to similar entities before disposing of that land. It does contain a number of exceptions. And so when this issue was initially raised, the town did contact the school district because the town was curious as to whether or not the school district had complied with the Naylor Act. And so the school district did contact the town to explain how it had complied with the Naylor Act, utilizing one of the exceptions for an exchange of real property. And so with the information that the town has, it appears that the school district did comply with the Naylor Act. But again, what's before the commission tonight is whether the Development Review Committee properly approved a subdivision of one lot into two. And so what's not at issue tonight is anything related to disposition of the property. It's just whether the subdivision was proper.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. Did you address the 1486 surplus land? Was that part of the? Yeah, that was part of that.
Yeah, so to reiterate, the Surplus Land Act applies to the town, and it has similar requirements to the Naylor Act for school districts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we will open the public portion of the public hearing on item number 3, and I give the appellant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. So whoever is speaking on behalf of the appellant tonight, please come up to the podium, speak directly into the microphone. And
that
I
would
think
be
that's
you, Mr. Shepherdson. You're the appellant.
Mr. Shepherdson, thank you. And you will have, just to clarify, you will have 5 minutes. The applicant will then have 5 minutes while public comment, and then each of you will have an additional 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm an attorney, John Shepherdson, providing pro bono representation to property owner Mary Kanjimi. I want to thank the town attorney and Ms. Stoopman for their assistance. I also want to acknowledge the civility of Mr. Robeson throughout this process. He's been a model of civility in my dealings with him. I did have a PowerPoint that I wanted to play. It's the last one that I sent. And while we're waiting, should I speak or?
It's up to you.
Well, while he's, no. It's the last one I sent. Well, we're waiting? No, it's the last one. Well, while they're doing that, I'd be happy to talk.
Are we, well, hold on one second. Did we stop? Is the clock paused? Okay, perfect. If we'll just wait for everything. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so can you run the next slide? And the next slide. And this is the government code section that says that the zoning and general plan must be consistent. The next slide. And this is the GP designating I'm sorry, designating the school site as public land. It's the blue dot to the far right.
Mr. Shepherdson, you can take the mic off and walk over. Thank you.
This right here is the old Marisol School site. It's public land designated by the general plan. Next slide. Down here is under the zoning is designated as residential. And the law says that they've got to be consistent. And my position is they are inconsistent, the general plan and the zoning. In that school and all the schools in Los Gatos. Los Gatos High School is zoned residential. So then the law says that when there's a conflict, that the general plan takes precedence over the zoning. So the zoning, we're doing a lot split on a property that has zoning that's trumped by the general plan. So my opinion, the zoning there does not apply to this decision making. And in my view, the lot split itself violates the general plan because it's a public space, and our general plan promotes recreational use. It's at 7.2 Parks and Rec, policy number 6.1, recreational space acquisition, acquire and develop more publicly accessible active and passive community recreation and spaces. So it's in the general plan. We actually promote the purchase and promotion of these kinds of lands. And this project is going to destroy it because we're splitting this school. Why? For the clear intent, it's undisputed, to develop 12 or 13 homes worth about $4 to $4.5 million. And fine, we can develop property, but we're taking away the fields, the recreational area. And so it's my position that this lot split in and of itself violates the general plan. And the zoning there is trumped by the general plan as a matter of law. And this is from Lesher Communications versus City of Walnut Creek, 1990, 52, Cal Up 3rd, 531, 540, California Supreme Court. A zoning ordinance that's inconsistent with the general plan is invalid when passed, and one that was originally consistent but has become inconsistent must be brought in conformity with the general plan. It has not taken place. Has not taken place. So we have a serious problem, I suggest, here and throughout the town. And so I think that there's so many questions with this, even this lot split. That's why I spent all this time and energy to try and figure out what's happening here. And we're splitting a lot on public land with zoning that's trumped by the general plan. So with that, and 20 seconds. This is from Orange Citizens for Parks and Recreation versus Superior Court 2, Cal App 5th, 141 at page 153. But the propriety of virtually any local decision affecting land use and development depends on consistency with the applicable general plan and elements.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherdson. Do any commissioners have questions of the appellant at this time? No, thank you. You will have another, you'll be called up again. Thank you. Now the applicant team, I do have a card for Jack Robeson. So, okay, you can come forward. You will also have 5 minutes. And you can share that amongst your team however you would like.
Good evening. My name is Jack Robeson. I represent the applicant, Robeson Homes. Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you for your time. I know it's a late evening, so I will try to be as brief as I can. I think there are two key items relevant to why I'm up here to speak for the applicant, us. The first is a response to the appeal, which is what brought us here this evening to discuss. The purpose matter of our application, M24011, was to do a 2-lot subdivision. There's no proposed development, there's no proposed construction, there's no proposed change in use. The property is remaining the same, besides it being 2 lots instead of 1. Staff confirmed we met all the requirements to create that lot. So when we received our approval December 10th, that was what we believed to be the end of it. But in any case, what is in front of you is a 2-lot subdivision. There's nothing else proposed. So to the appellant's comments related to a change of use or the GP conformance or whatnot, we are not trying to modify any of that in this application. So number 2 is the conditions of approval, something that I wanted to address. We have been working on language with staff, which I've greatly appreciated. Section 13, because there is no proposed development or construction in this project, we feel that the requirements related to asphalt repair and replacement on Gatos and Bellevue, as well as the sidewalk extension and sidewalk repair and replacement on Gatos and Bellevue, do not have a place in this application. We are just creating a legal lot split. Having those conditions of approval should be addressed later when we make an application for an architectural site or further subdivision. So we have addressed that to the best of our abilities with our comments to staff. What is in front of you is effectively our best attempt at recognizing some of the concerns staff has to making those concerns addressed. So what is in front of you, and excuse me for having to go get a copy off of the chair. Our suggested recommendation is to agree to the repairs and restoration of the sidewalk on Gatos Road, subject to us pulling a building permit. But once again, a building permit is subject to an application being approved. So we're really just trying to agree to recognize that the concern of staff is related to improvements happening on both parcels, although a future application may only be on one of them. And so the purpose of what we are recommending here is to address that later on when a application, if deemed approved, would address those concerns related to the sidewalk and asphalt repairs. Related to asphalt repairs, the language in here would be more or less for us to come to an agreement prior to pulling a final parcel map. The current agreement allows for us to enter into an agreement before pulling that final parcel map. So the hope here is to address that language within that agreement. The extended sidewalk along Bellevue, we recognize the need and the desire of the town to have the sidewalk extend along that frontage. We're okay with that extension. Once again, it's something we want to address when or if a application for development is approved. So the revised language, if it were to stay in the conditions of approval, would be that it'd be addressed in a future project, specifically to parcel A. So with that, I appreciate the time. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? No, thank you very much. We will now invite comments from members of the public. If you have not already turned in a speaker card to staff, please do so at this time and or raise your hand on Zoom. I have one card, speaker card, and that is Rich Dobner. Thank you. If you can come to the mic, please state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Dobner. I am a Los Gatos resident forever, and I've lived in the Bellwood neighborhood for 22 plus years. And there's been a lot of discussion the last year or so around the school property and the possible changes. And our group, we've put together in our communities called Preserve Bellwood Neighborhood Association. There's an HOA in that neighborhood called Bellwood Homes Association. It's 279 houses. And then there's an adjacent neighborhood called Sermont. And we've gathered about 90 different people to come to a couple of community meetings to talk to the school board. We've invited the school board out as well as the Robeson team, and to talk about the situation with the school, what they're trying to do. There's a lot of concern from our neighborhood. I think everybody from Loma Alta's gone home, so I'm the only one here from the Bellwood neighborhood, and I live in the neighborhood. I think I'm the only one here that lives in that neighborhood. And so I want to let you know, as a community, we are following closely what happens. Your decisions matter to us. And we've shared our input with the school. We've had good dialogue with the school, and we've met with them as a group to simplify for them rather than knocking on 279 doors to say, hey, we have some concerns, when the idea was they would sell the property or 1031 it. And then concerns about, what would be the possible development if and when. And so we're keeping a close eye on it, and so far everything's fine. We don't have any consternation around a split in the property. But I thought you should know that Army of One, I'm representing the community, and we have a long list of people in our neighborhood that are paying close attention. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. And before you leave, I just want to ask, do any commissioners have any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Stump.
You said that you're watching this closely. What are you watching for as you think about the future?
Right. Well, I think if you look around California, and if you came down here to the town, you guys I think had a special committee meeting last summer around the development. You brought somebody in, a legal expert, to talk about all the changes in California and all the high rises that were suggested. And I will let you know that there was a suggestion initially around the idea of this property is going to get sold. They're going to build, 30 or to 50 condominiums in our neighborhood. And that would be encapsulated and circled by all our houses. And so we have concerns. Just like people on Loma Alta have concern for one guy that's going to build a house maybe a little bigger than he should or whatever. I don't know. It's for you guys to decide. But there were, initially people grab their pitchforks and they come out and they're mad as hell. And then they come to, okay, tell me more about this. And once you get to tell me more, then people start to understand. And then it becomes the next phase of, okay, what tough, difficult decisions do we need to make to get to something reasonable so that we can progress, right? And our goal has always been to, if this is going to happen for the betterment of the school, we believe that better schools make better neighborhoods. I think many people would raise their hand to that. And we believe that if that is the path, and this does lead to development at some point in time, then those, whatever gets developed needs to conform to the rules and regulations set in place by the town or the CCNRs that adjudicate our HOA. So I think those are the things that matter the most. And so, active listener, happy to represent my neighborhood.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Burnett.
So what I hear what you're saying is that you're aware of the project. You're at this point, there's no real issues, that you have a good relationship with Robson Homes and whatever might occur there. Everything is, you don't have a lot of concerns right now.
I don't have a concern. We understand what the school wants to do. We support the school trying to find a way to self-support the funding beyond the normal taxation of houses in our neighborhood, right? It's a very small school district, I've come to learn, and they rely on this. Bond funds come up. We support the bonds to support the schools to make better neighborhoods, right? It's all connected tissue, right? Mm-hmm. And so at this point, the idea that they want to transfer this property and turn it into something else that'll generate revenues for them is, I think, an appropriate idea. It's not uncommon in the state of California. And the idea that this may get developed is one that our ears are open. We are listening to everybody. We have, I think, a reasonable relationship with the people that are involved just to understand what's going on. And we'll see when that, actually, when something comes to bear as far as what a plan could be, we're going to be active.
Thank
So
you.
I want you to know, representing the town, that the people are watching.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Fair?
thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Commissioner Barnett.
I may have misheard, or maybe you misspoke, but I thought you said that the CCNRs for the subdivision affected the school, that they were subject to the CCNR.
Yeah, so there's I think it's in the county paperwork, and I have to go to somebody smarter on my committee than myself. But when this land was first laid out and divided, the property that we've learned is it's subject to R110 property sites. And so when we heard the neighborhood heard the school was going to sell the property, we were scared, nervous, all the things you can imagine, right? And then we started doing our homework, and what we found was the CCNRs, the R110 was binding sort of contract language from the 60s. And that's how all our homes are built today. Much like the Loma Alta conversation, people want a new home to be built to fit in. If there are going to be new homes, we would like them to be built to fit into the neighborhood. That's all. We weren't super excited about, a 30-story building with a doggy diner on top.
If I could have a follow-up. I'm assuming that in the CCNRs for the homeowners association, there's architectural control. Is that correct or not?
I am not on the HOA.
Okay.
Although I have served many years on the HOA, I'm not currently on the HOA, so I cannot confirm nor deny.
Okay, we'll leave it for the
But
future.
I would suggest that in your research that you talk to the Bellwood HOA about those things.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any hands raised on Zoom?
I don't, here, hold on one second. One just went up. Steve, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First, we want to thank the Planning Commission for giving us a couple of minutes to speak on the Mirasu project. Deanne Oler and I, Steve Daniel, we live at 235 Gatos, and we've been here for about 20 years. And we've made significant investments in both the interior and the exterior of our home. Most recently, we did a major renovation to our front yard. Came out beautiful, and neighbors regularly stop by on their walks. They compliment the work we've done in the hardscape and the gardens that Deanne has created. Really beautiful. And we love the neighborhood. We love our neighbors. And we do whatever we can to help, enhance the value of the neighborhood and the surrounding properties. I was actually on the original committee, the Preserve Bellwood Committee with Rich. So we did a lot of work up front. And I think, as Rich said, we tried to kind of help the process and make a positive impact, on how the project got put together and how it fit into the neighborhood. And I think, Rich and the team continue to do great work there with Mark and Jack Robson, the town, excuse me, and you in the school district. We don't want to make it about ourselves, but unfortunately, with the latest design, which is absolutely way improved over the original layouts, we feel we're kind of taking a direct hit. The private road that comes off onto Gatos will bisect our property, and it'll be directly across the street from our house. And obviously, we'll have a number of problems. One, lights will be hitting our living room and master bedroom, which are both in the front of the home. There'll be a significant increase in street lighting from the new street. We'll have traffic entering and exiting our driveway. We'll be dealing with an enormous amount of trucks entering and exiting the site and parked on the road during construction. And anyone who lives in the Bay Area knows that, homes which are located at the termination of a street, they tend to turn into rentals. The property values can go down. I'm not saying they're going to go down here. And there are issues with resale. There's issues with feng shui. We've talked to a lot of realtors who said, we have a large Asian population, which we totally support them buying houses, but they will not really be apt to buy a home that has a street coming out right into the front of its home. So, we realize this is not going to be a major thoroughfare. It's going to only be supporting, 10 or 11 homes. But we just feel, and again, we're not trying to make it about us, but we're the most impacted of all the houses in the neighborhood. The setbacks, which were really bad to start with for the people on West Hill and Badger-Kalupi, have been fixed. The Robeson did a great job, working with those people to have that fixed. We are working with Jack. He and I are in conversation to explore if there are any ways to lessen the impact on our house. And he's committed to working with his engineering team and to look at alternatives. So we just wanted to, state our concern, state our support. We think they'll build fabulous homes. We've seen his work. So we just wanted to state our concerns and support what Rich was talking about as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, are there any other hands raised on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair. There are no other hands raised.
Okay. Now I will invite the appellant back up. You
Applicant.
have three. Sorry, what?
Applicant first.
Applicant first. I'm sorry. Applicant's coming up first. Thank you. You will have 3 additional minutes to speak. Few.
Applicant.
Applicant and then, applicant first and then appellant. Thank you.
I think I just want to reiterate the comments I made at the beginning of the conversation, which is this is a 2-lot subdivision. There's no proposed change of use. There's no development in front of you. That time will come when we make a formal application, and we look forward to addressing the greater community's concerns and staffs at that time. Based on the neighborhood outreach is an exhibit in the staff report. We are active in the neighborhood. As you can see, some of the members are here. And so we will continue to be committed to that and answering those questions and doing everything we can in the ultimate event that we formalize an application. The idea is to do that with those concerns addressed as best we can. That would be, besides that, the other thing I would like to point out and recognize is the district's letter that they sent and submitted yesterday. We greatly appreciate the partnership we have with them, meeting their objectives and helping them reach that objective. But that letter, again, reiterates the same thing I'm telling you. The application that's being appealed is for a 2-lot subdivision. There's no proposed change of use. The district has asked you to deny the appeal. The applicant is requesting you deny the appeal based on that criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Mr.
Robeson?
Robeson.
Sorry. Do you have any information about privately recorded CC&Rs that may affect your property and the division that we're talking about tonight, the lot split?
Yes, so the title report and conditions of CC&Rs were included in our application materials. It's a recorded covenant on the title report, so of course that's required in our application. The requirements are generally lesser of the R110 standard, although they do have a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. And in a formal application for development, we plan to exceed those standards as well as meet, to the best of our abilities, the zoning standard that is that Mr. Shepperson pointed out in his presentation, the R110. So,
but nothing that would relate to the application tonight.
No, sir. Okay. There's no proposed change of use, and so the CC&Rs address lot size minimums and those criteria.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, now the appellant. Great, you can come up. You have an additional 3 minutes, and then there will be opportunities for questions.
Thank you. So these are also grass fields. There's an issue with turf and astroturf and all that. This is fields and grass fields. And secondly, the Union School District has avoided the Naylor Act with the exchange, property exchange, income producing property. That's how they avoided the Naylor Act. It would be my ultimate goal to have them comply with the Naylor Act and have them offer that land to the town at no more than 25% of the fair market value, so that then the town could buy those fields as well as the school ultimately, and perhaps have a community center. So that's my long-term ideal. I do think that these changes that we're making here, that the very fact that we're having a lot split on zoning that is inapplicable because it's inconsistent with the general plan. I think nobody's disputing that. So we just have the general plan, and now why are we doing a lot split on public land? I mean, in and of itself, being brought by the developer with the clear intent, we have it, it's undisputed, they want to develop it out. So in my view, this approach, even at the lot split level, I'm not sure if it's even legal because you're doing a subdivision on zoning that's trumped by the general plan, but you were doing a lot split on public land and brought by the developer on behalf. So to me, it violates the general plan, because the general plan talks about open space, but it talks about recreational area. It talks about acquiring recreational areas, not maintaining them and acquiring them. And it's undisputed, we're going to be losing these fields forever. So in my view, going down this track, and we're also talking about things like, sidewalks and whatnot. I just took some quick notes. So we're already moving in the direction of developing out that lot at this stage. So in my view, it violates the general plan. And I would ask that, and that's why we brought this appeal, because we know where they're going. Their steps are being implemented as part of this process. Where is it supported in a general plan to have a lot split on public land? And this is a larger issue in town because all the schools are zoned residential. We've got to clean that up across the board as well. So with that, if you have any questions, I appreciate everybody's time and attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
So we received your letter as a desk item today, and I guess my question is whether you had an opportunity to talk to the town attorney about the points you're raising tonight, either before or after you wrote your letter.
I'm not a land use attorney. The town attorney has been great. I've met with her. Ms. Stoopman has been wonderful. I've been learning as we go, so to speak. So with the issues that were just raised, I haven't talked with the town attorney about what I raised in a desk item today. I would, as an option, is perhaps suggest that this hearing being continued to some of these legal issues be flushed out before we go down the track of approving something that we're really on shaky ground here. Because I understand that it appears that perhaps some of you didn't know about this issue, and that's why I came to you all with the law from the California Supreme Court cases. And there's this case that says virtually any land use decision, in which I just read, virtually any land use decision is subject to the general plan. And that's a very broad category. And so I don't know why this lot split fits within that broad category of virtually everything, because I think we can agree.
You answered my question about the town attorney communication. Thank you.
I think I answered more than that, but thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? No? Okay. So We will now close the public portion of the public hearing on item number 3, and I invite commissioners to ask questions of staff, provide comments, propose a motion. Commissioner Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. A question for staff. The applicant, not the applicant, made comments about this conditions of approval, specifically condition of approval 13 regarding improvements to sidewalks, roads, et cetera. I was wondering what staff's thoughts were on those. Is it better deferred until the development to include those conditions? Do we want that as part of this application?
I'll start, and then we have the Director of Parks and Public Works here, and also Mr. Sparks from the department. And so the town did receive communication this afternoon that suggested changes to the conditions of approval. I think what it is there needs to be further discussion on the timing, because I think the applicant might be thinking that the town is asking for those improvements to be done right now. And really what the town is asking is that the future improvements be a condition of approval of this parcel map. But when they're done, can be, prior to building permit issuance, prior to final map recordation. But those details really still need to be worked out. And I'll defer to Parks and Public Works.
Thank you for the question, Corville Sparks, Parks and Public Works. Yeah, just to second what was said earlier, we really think it's more so of a timing issue. As far as the scope of the actual improvements, we've been working closely with the applicant, and we've received there's been some back and forth today, and this latest proposal from them is something that looks good, but is something that we want to talk over, discuss and get back to them on. So that's where we are with the conditions.
I appreciate those comments. Would it be fair then to suggest then that if, assuming there was an approval going forward, that we would include language such that at some future date or before development, or could staff suggest some language we could insert into the condition of approval this evening, or what would staff suggest?
Since the communication just came in this afternoon, it didn't sound to me as if the department was in a position to commit to wording tonight, but I'll defer to the department.
Agreed.
Very good. Thank you. As long as I'm speaking, I'll just give my preliminary thoughts.
Actually, I'm just going to ask a follow-up question to that
sorry.
while we're on this subject. So then, moving forward, what do we do? Recognize the current conditions of approval and then make the recommendation to staff that they be adjusted in accordance to...
My recommendation is not that be something that be worked out by staff in the future. I would want the decision makers to see the conditions of approval before they're put into place. So the two avenues that I see, and there may be others, are the commission could continue the item to allow staff and the applicant to finalize the conditions, or the commission could approve the parcel map with the conditions that were proposed by staff, and then that could be appealed to the town council. And as I'm describing that, the first option sounds better. So.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like yes. Okay, less work or more effective work. Okay, great. Commissioner Rapp.
Very good. So just to clarify, is it we would continue the entire matter? Is that?
That's my recommendation.
Yeah. Then perhaps rather than getting into a full-blown discussion, Chair? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question. I'm still concerned about Mr. Shepperson, the points he raises. The conflict between the zoning and the general plan.
I mean, I can't dispute that the government code says the zoning should match the general plan, but with regard to parcel maps, the State Subdivision Map Act governs, and the Map Act sets forth a series of findings that a decision maker has to make in order to approve a parcel map. And one of the findings, the finding that's the most relevant to the information that Mr. Shepardson presented, is the decision makers have to decide that the parcel map is consistent with the general plan. And so the general plan designation is public. I don't personally see any discrepancy between public land being one lot or two lots.
That's what I was actually going to ask. So I just want to clarify that I also agree and understand, and we've been addressing some of these, like the general plan and zoning issues throughout all of our time on the commission and on the general plan committee. However, it doesn't seem that at this point, by my understanding, that a lot split conflicts with the general plan because it's still being proposed. I mean, it's still public land.
That's staff's view of the findings.
Okay, thank you. And then I think also I just want to mention that this is not the only type of application or appeal even that we've seen, that it's like the first step is doing, the lot split, and then the next step is X, Y, and Z, and that is something that happens with, other items with regards to HPC, with removing something from the inventory, and then an architecture and site application. It's just how the process works in our town, and I know that that's something that's being looked at to streamline by staff and council. But at this time, it seems like that we, the decision seems to have been consistent. So that being said, yes, Commissioner Burnett.
So what we're saying is the 9.10 acres, we're splitting that. And then we're saying B, which would be the school part, 4.8. That would be continued as public land?
No, the way I view it is that what's the application that's before the commission tonight is a split of one parcel into two parcels.
Right.
And so the commission is being asked, is splitting one parcel into two consistent with these findings that have to be made under the Subdivision Map Act? One of which is that consistent with the general plan? And so then the question becomes, is splitting one lot into two consistent with the general plan designation of public space?
So if we split the parcel, which is 9.10 acres, into two, that's what we're saying here, then what the parcel that is not going to be used for development, let's say, what will that be considered? Will that be rezoned, or will it be in compliance with the general plan at that part? What do you do with that other?
So that's a question for down the road, because tonight the question is, should one lot be split into two?
And I would just offer also that,
thank you.
The public designation, as Mr. Shepherdson mentioned, that's on every school site that we have, public school site. And so the school still owns the property. They're the actual property owners. So they're bringing this forward after the action of the Planning Commission or final action on this specific application. The school's still going to own it. Yes, they probably have agreements with the Robesons, and so something else may come forward later, but town attorney's point, it's what's before us tonight is simply a lot split. And there's nothing in the general plan that says, for instance, this designation wants X acres of property for each lot or things like that. So,
just for interest, are we trying to? I know this is an issue that comes up all the time, the discrepancy between zoning and our general plan. So I'm sure we're working on it.
We actually, I think just today, received some information from our outside GIS consultants of what those properties are, and so give us a path forward.
Thank you.
Commissioner Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. So my sense is we have to continue this matter so that the town and applicant can agree upon the condition of approval language. Can I just get a sense from staff and applicant, how long do we think that will take so we can set a date?
February 12th.
February 12th? Great. Okay, is there...
And again, like the previous one, if something's not worked out, then we'll just continue to the next meeting.
Perfect. Yes, please.
Thank you. I move, I'm sorry, is there, I didn't mean to step. I move to continue matter number 3, that is the appeal of Development Review Committee decision approving subdivision of one lot into two lots on property zoned R110 located at 220 Gatos Road, APN 527-25-005, subdivision application M-24-001, to a date certain, that is February, and you just told me, 12th, so that the parties can work towards agreement on condition of approval language.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll second the motion.
Great, thank you. And any discussion? No. I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. And there are no appeal rights because it's a continuance. So, thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience tonight. Mr. Paulson, so now on our agenda, we have the report from the Director of Community Development. Mr. Paulson, do you have a report?
Thank you. Just briefly, I think the only thing that's happened since we last met is council meeting last night. So there was a resolution for the National Avenue appeal of the Planning Commission's decision. So that was adopted last night. That will be coming back to the Planning Commission. There were 2 housing element programs, implementation programs that were adopted and or introduced last night. And then I think the last one was the Oak Meadow PD amendment in architecture and site and subdivision that the Planning Commission saw previously that they introduced.
Thank you. And subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the Commission serve on several town committees, including the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee, the General Plan Committee, and the Historic Preservation Committee. Are there any subcommittee reports other than HPC? Do you want to?
Yes.
Thank you.
We did have a meeting today, and we had only 2 items, and both were unanimous decisions. And then we do have a new chair, Lee Quintana. Vice chair is Martha K. Ross. And we have a new member, Ellen Feinberg, which should be a real asset. And we also have a new commissioner member, our chair, Emily Thomas. So, and that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnett. I just want to thank staff. We had a long day, so thank you very much for everyone who was very patient this evening with everyone. And there being no further business of the commission, this meeting is adjourned.